What's going on, everybody? I hope everyone's having a fantastic evening, fantastic afternoon, fantastic pre-noon. No matter where you are in the world, I'm Hassan Piker, and this is the HasnAbi broadcast coming to you live from gray, not sunny, very gray, California, Los Angeles, folks. We're live and alive, and I hope all the boys, girls, and MBs are having a fantastic one because today is a beautiful day. Today's a wonderful day. Today is Sunday. That's right. It's a Sunday. Fun day, Sunday, spectacular, special stream day. Don't tell anybody else. We're streaming today. Okay? Don't tell anyone that we're out here streaming. But folks, we're live. We're alive. And I hope everyone's having a fantastic one. It is Sunday. Can you replay the intro I just got here? No, I can't. So shroom. Anyway, it's Sunday morning and I'm cozy. I'm comfy. You know, this is the part of the broadcast where I tell you about my personal news, about what's going on in the world of HasnAbi Piker in between the time period where I press the stop streaming button and press the start streaming button. Okay? That's right. Watch the VOD for the intro. Good call. Flex, please. I can't. There's nothing to flex with this hoodie on. I'm sorry. The song is proof we're fucked as a species. Hope the stream goes great today, King. If you say so. Anyway. I'm bullying Kai again this morning. Yeah, this is part of the broadcast where I tell you about my personal news about what's going on in the world of HasnAbi Piker in between the time period where I press the stop streaming button and press the start streaming button. And let me tell you, okay, a lot has happened. Now, of course, first of all, I'm drinking a warm coffee today because it's cozy day. It's cozy day. This is the design embroidery. Yeah, it's HasnAbi head that sent me the hoodie that they made. But anyway, folks, yesterday, as you guys know, we went to Skid Row with Water Drop LA. It was a fucking awesome, amazing stream. It felt fantastic. I need to do more stuff like that, honestly. Fuck all the noise, fuck all the haters. It made me feel really good, and I think it was very successful. But outside of that, and the ridiculous ways that people are trying to turn this into a negative because they're deeply unserious, very cynical, and very sad people, very pathetic people in general. Why are you so triggered by your own chat always? Because people come in here and try to be fucking annoying in ways that I think are unacceptable and inappropriate. So, in any case, where was I? So yeah, it was a lovely stream overall. I had an amazing time. It felt pretty good. So it is what it is. Anyway, but after that, came back home, shot the podcast with Alexander Lol Overruled. It's a banger episode. It's a very good episode that we did. Very fun episode that we did. But afterwards, we went to my friend's birthday party. My normie friend's birthday party. And I stayed there for like a total of 20 to 30 minutes. And that was it. I went back home. I passed the fuck out. Luckily this time around, considering that I had also played basketball early in the morning and then also on top of that walked the whole goddamn day, and also on top of that shot a freaking podcast and went out afterwards, I basically was like, it's over. It's Jover for me. I'm going to bed. Regardless of the fact that Kaya was snoring very loudly. Now, of course, that peaceful slumber was interrupted. That peaceful slumber was interrupted in the morning when Kaya woke my ass up. Here, I'll show you some choice moments from that stream as well. Obviously, this was fantastic. Met this beautiful little puppy. Met this wonderful person, Hawk, and also Sade, obviously, of Waterdrop LA. But yeah, here, you guys need to understand, like, this bitch might come across all nice and all cute, wearing the donut on stream, giving me the side eye. Okay. But she woke my ass up at 5 a.m. And I tried going back to sleep and I could not. Like, listen to this, dude.
I woke up this morning early because I can't sleep because someone is being incredibly loud when they snore.
It's too much ruffling, so I didn't realize that you can't even hear it, but she's so loud, dude. She's so loud. It's crazy. It's crazy. She snores like an old man. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on. She snores like an old man. I don't know if it's the drugs, it's the cone maybe. It's the way that she sleeps. But yeah, I bawled in the rain this morning. It's not rainy, but it was like very foggy conditions, and it made me feel like I was Kyrie Irving. Curry stole your moves? Wait, what? Yeah. That's the certified me move. Yeah, I taught him that. It's kind of crazy. I was hooping just like that today. It's crazy. I don't know how you, like, for a second, when I watched this video, I was like, oh, how did they get this video of me from earlier today? And then I realized, like, oh, that's not me. That's Steph Curry. Like, it's crazy, though. It's crazy how much I ball exactly like him. It is kind of crazy. Like, it even confuses me sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, that move, like, that's something that I've done so many times. Like, I basically taught him that. It's not a big deal. You need to be chill about it. I'm pretty fucking nonchalant about it, if we're being honest. But yeah, it's like two people that are responsible for Steph Curry and his career is just like me and Cat Williams. It's real. Yeah. More than anybody else, really. It's just like, I just because I don't talk about it too frequently because I'm just a nonchalant, humble dude, you know, doesn't. The Marvel Rivals making his way onto you for you. Oh, also, speaking of Marvel Rivals, I was playing with Noko, Greek, Elam this morning, and a couple other friends as well. We had a whole ass squad. We had a whole ass squad out there. We were running it. The Swagapino gang did not show up. Usually they show up in the mornings, but yes, Greek, the real Greek, okay? Apex Greek. Not fucking, not the Greckler that you know. But yeah, we were balling, and apparently Noko is top 500 right now in Rivals. He was not top 500 on the courts, but he's top 500 in Rivals. So I'm gonna see if I can get him to carry my ass a little bit with a Smurf. Do you ever call him Turk? I mean, I basically turned him Albanian the way I cooked him on the courts, but that is what it is, you know. That's just get that boosted higher than Ray. We need the content. I know. Second top 500 carry. Yeah, I need multiple top 500 carries. I saw this clip. It's funny. Speed tried impressing his girlfriend by doing a backflip, but accidentally hit the desk. To be honest, like, I'm sure she's seen him do backflips. You know what I mean? 1v1 charity stream with chatters. I'll fly to LA from Toronto. No, because honestly, the real charity would be me only dropping 50 on you. You know what I mean? It would be the real charity. We wouldn't even raise any money. People would be like, this is too ruthless. This is too brutal. He's too good. He's too goated. Why is he so good? He's just skunking everybody. Like, what the fuck? And then I'd have to do extra charity by just like letting you get a shot off or something, you know? Be careful, you're gonna die from self-suck. Yeah, I'm just feeling myself. It's fine. But yeah, here's one of the many wonderful moments. I'm gonna talk about I'll blast off because like there's not much else going on right now. I'll blast off, and then today's gonna be cozy. Today's gonna be chill. Why did you delete that tweet? Live your truth, queen. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. After the podcast, apparently, me leaving my computer desktop on and not putting it into sleep mode can have some dangerous effects. Dangerous effects such as the person that you open your home to, that you invite into your home, that you welcome into your family, can just sometimes go in there, and if you don't put it in sleep mode, will just tweet some stuff out. Now, there is no issue with Lol Overrule posting I'm gay or whatever from my Twitter normally. There is no issue with that at all. The problem is right now, I'm on high alert. There's a lot of like different groups that are coming after me and yelling at me about like innocuous shit, desperately trying to find something that they can yell about and get mad about. So when he posts something like that, and then sometimes people take it seriously, which many people did, you know, at first I was like, should I play off of this? And then I was like, I can't right now. I can't even have fun right now. I can't even fuck around. I was watching yesterday's VOD right now, and it was purely so heartwarming and so sad at the same time. It probably made me cry. You were so great, and I don't get the critique of actions that tangibly bring some benefit in the lives of people, Lamau. I don't get armchair activists complaining. You did so great. It was such a touching stream. Sorry for the essay. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I mean, most of the people that are chirping are just chirping because they are sad, angry, pathetic people. That's it. I think that's what it is for the most part, because like, you don't have to fucking highlight every good action that you do, right? There's a very specific purpose for why I do things on camera. And we'll talk about that in a second, okay? I retweeted a tweet about what you did yesterday and got called a T-slur. Yeah, people are freaks, man. People are just like very angry. People are very sad. That's it. It's just like a way to try and it's more so for a way for people to try and like make themselves feel better by like putting others down. It's just bully shit. Anyway, but yeah, I'll cover all that briefly. We help water drop LA give out clothes and other things to people in need. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do a Skid Row recap. And then we'll talk light news. Skid Row recap, light news. It's super special secret Sunday stream. Ban appeals with the people's lawyer at lol overruled later. Get in now. But yeah, we'll do like cozy stuff today for the most part. Does anyone have a good blast off meme for this? If you want a rivals later, hit me up. Hell yeah, Andre. Where'd you get that hoodie? P.O. Box. A long time ago. The holidays make people worse too, because it makes it very apparent that they're unlovable, pathetic losers who have been abandoned by their own famous and friends. Yeah. Like, part of the reason why I also stream through the holidays aside from being an insane person, is quite literally because I know that there are lonely people out there who aren't fucking assholes. You know what I mean? And yeah, a part of why I stream so much is also because of the sense of community that I get and the sense of community that I want to cultivate. So it's frustrating when people just kind of selfishly take advantage of that to be like, yeah, my shit sucks, so I'm just going to be mean and ruthless and cynical and awful. Yeah, it is what it is. Lavender purple is your color, BFF. Thank you. So the Japan night with Connor was probably my favorite stream of all time. Thank you for what you do. Yeah. That's periwinkle, not lavender. Okay. Okay, we don't have a fucking blast off meme, y'all are. I know that there is a South Korean plane crash that took place. I know. Fear not, I am aware. I know. I will be talking about that for sure. Lolo crying on your stream is queer media. Yes. Yeah, that is what it is. That's like that. I always am giving space. I'm always holding space for queer media. Okay. I'm always doing that. Lola's caught on every stream or almost close to it. Yeah, okay, don't make fun of him. Only I get to make fun of him for that. You guys don't get to make fun of him for that. It's such a contrast to what people are piling on you online. You were actually doing real work in your community. It taught me to approach life that way. That's exactly the lesson and the takeaway that I want from people. It's funny because like on the way back, okay, here I'm blasting off and I'm gonna get into the recap and how I feel about like the Water Drop LA stuff that we did. But don't make fun of water signs. It will fuck y'all up. Click this, Nandre. Periwinkle is blue. Lolo came to my house to take a nap. You've got no nap spots, bro. That is patently untrue. There are plenty of nap spots. He just enjoys napping at other places. It's just the same people who criticize you for literally anything you do. I know. There were 2 other Boeing flights today that had emergency landings where the landing gear failed. Jesus Christ. But yeah. All right, let's continue. Let's get into it. So for those of you who don't know, yesterday we went to Skid Row with Water Drop LA. It's a local organization that gives water, which is much needed, and many other much needed supplies like tarps, like tent material specifically, to a lot of the unhoused people at Skid Row. Now, obviously, there's a massive population of homeless people in Los Angeles, and there's a massive population of homeless people in America. There's been an 18% increase in homelessness in the nation year over year. This past year, the number has gone up to more than 700,000. And in that same time frame, obviously, there's been a lot of anti-homeless sentiment that has also increased. There's always been a lot of anti-homeless sentiment. Americans, I think, despise the poor in general. But basically, there's a lot of violence and there's a lot of dehumanization of homeless people. And in an effort to, one, do something good, okay, and urge others to also engage in community organizing in a similar fashion, and also, perhaps most importantly, showcase the humanity of the unhoused population, Lolo and I went in with an established local community organizing group called Waterdrop LA that already have a pre-existing relationship with many of the unhoused population of Skid Row, some of which have wanted to volunteer to be on camera, as a matter of fact, and talk about their experiences. So all of it was already pre-cooked, right? We had already pre-planned this because the goal was very specific. There's plenty of charity that I engage in and mutual aid initiatives that I also engage in off camera. This, on the other hand, was specifically so that, one, people could understand that there's much satisfaction to be derived from doing things like this. It feels great. But also, hopefully, people would recognize the humanity of the unhoused population. And that's it. And I think we accomplished that goal perfectly. But as is the case with anything that I do online, I was joking about it. I was like, well, how will I get canceled over this anyway? And it turns out Reddit was already going crazy over it. Reddit was already fucking chirping about it. Because it's some of the shittiest people on the fucking planet. A chatter posted it on LSF. Hasan gets mad at chat after accusations of potentially exploiting the homeless on Skid Row for views. They, of course, clipped it in a very specific way. We're going there with some people that work every single day with these people. So it's not, don't film it maybe. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. You're the woke of the day. Isn't it inherently exploitative to film? No, you dumb fucks. The entire point is humanizing these people. That's the whole point. Can you just shut the fuck up, please? Can all of you just collectively shut your stupid fucking woke mouths up? Is that okay? Can we just shut the fuck up collectively? Anyway, most of the comments were agreeing with me, so the fucking hate post didn't actually go anywhere, but it is kind of crazy. Because, like, a lot of people, when they see me yelling at these people, don't realize that, like, they should fucking agree with me yelling at these people. These are the smarmy, annoying people that virtually everyone despises. This is the woke, too woke for their own good. That one friend who's too woke. Meta. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because, like, so many people didn't even watch the stream, did not care about all of the things that I'm even mentioning here. The fact that we did not film anyone without prior consent. There are 0 clips of the actual IRL stream here. And the only other clip that mentions me is XQC making fun of me for yelling, shut the fuck up. That in and of itself should probably show you the attitude that this fucking stupid ass Reddit community has. Some of the hate posting was exceptionally gross, like trying to wait for just you and one of the houseless were alone to frame shit on you, like masking like you're a germaphobe. Yeah. Yeah, it's very annoying. If I want to farm views, I just sit here, okay? I get more views just sitting around not doing shit in my own house. It's always, once again, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Okay? They say, Hasan, why don't you actually go out and help? And then I do that, okay? I raise money. They say, Hasan, why don't you give money out of your pocket? I do that. I give money out of my pocket when we're doing these massive fundraisers. They say, oh, if you were a real one, you would go out and help. I do that as well. And then people turn around and go, oh, you're actually doing that for clout. And that's it. There is no, like, you can't win with these people because this is not a logical, like, this is just pure hatred, okay? It's not logical. It's not coming from a place of like, I think this person is a bad person because of a bunch of things that they've done, and that's the reason why I despise them. It's more so, I've only heard bad things about this person because he's like always clipped out of context. And therefore, I now have to justify the vibes I have by constantly trying to figure out ways in which I will try to find ways in which I will say like, no, this is a bad person, I promise you. So that's it. You know what I mean? Why don't you drive your $120,000 sports car to Skid Row? Like, see, this is what I mean. Like, this is a person who is trying to do that thing over and over again. I don't know, man. Probably because, one, it would be a bad look, but more importantly, it doesn't have enough space. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is, like, it's so bad faith. It's such a bad faith and weird thing to do. It's like, dude does not care about homeless people at all. Dude does not give a fuck about homeless people. He does not care about anything. He's just in here invested in a fucking Twitch streamer. And that is unimaginably pathetic. That is a pathetic way to live. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? They want you to Mr. Beast on us so bad. Yeah. Anyway, so I saw people saying you were only giving Teddy Fresh merchandise despite Ethan. Yeah, people are insane. Okay, they're psychotic. I gave my own merchandise as well. I gave a shit ton of clothes that I have worn prior that have been sent to me. Some of which were never worn. Others I've worn many times over. It has nothing to do with like spiting someone. Why would that be spite? Like, I gave someone the jacket I was wearing. Like, what are you talking about? It's not. Viewing poor people as not people, be better. Wait, what? Me? Are you talking to chat? Because, like, what's the problem? That's something that I don't understand. What's the problem with, like what's the problem with unhoused people wearing your merchandise? Like, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to let your clothes that you don't wear rot? Anyway. But, like, ultimately, who cares? Oh, man, less desirable people are wearing these clothes. What the fuck? Like, this is insane. That's an insane thing to think. Please don't think that. What? Viewing poor people as not people, be better? Talking about Skid Row, dick? What? Okay. All right. Just take a week off, I think. It's insane how fucked humanity's become. I even have some gripes with things you say on occasion. Nothing you did should be judged. Thank you for helping the homeless on a lighter note. Please stop using Venom as DPS. Okay, first of all, Venom is a great DPS character. Yeah, the goal was to do a reverse Tyler Oliveira, for the record. The goal was to do a reverse Tyler Oliveira, which is to not like exploit and actively continue to dehumanize homeless people, but to instead offer a platform of community oriented people, which is what this community is comprised of, that will then further be emboldened in their worldview that these are just normal people, that have gotten a shitty rap. And that's it. And I think it was very successful on that front. And I will say, look, as someone who has donated collective totals of, at this point, millions of dollars, fundraised millions of dollars, donated hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years, this, like, doing this sort of thing hands-on is infinitely more meaningful. Because at the end of the day, I have all those clothes that are just like sitting in my closet. For me, people send that shit to me all the time, and I tell them not to, and yet they still do, right? And it's nothing. Like, it's meaningless for me. And even doing that, even doing this relatively meaningless thing from my end, you end up meeting a lot of very cool, very interesting people, and you end up helping them directly. I don't know. I think it feels more, I don't have the right words for it. It just feels more personal. So I highly urge people to go and join their local organizing initiatives like that. Like, I think volunteering is very fulfilling. And yeah, very empowering as well. Obviously, it's not the end all be all. But I wanted to make sure that people understood that. I even was talking to some people that were some people last night that were like, I can't believe how much people are like yelling at you. There's like people in our industry group chats that were like very upset with your Blake Lively coverage. And I looked at the thread and I saw that, like, you made a normal point that ultimately whatever Blake Lively's like vibes look like don't matter when her accusations are far more severe than just like having fucked vibes. And it is crazy. It's just like, it doesn't matter. For a lot of people, they just want to not understand the full scope of things. And this person I was talking to was like, how do you deal with all this? Like, I want to fight your battles for you. And I literally told her the same thing that I tell you guys all the time. And it's a principle that I live by as well, which is fuck the noise. Okay? Fuck the noise. It doesn't matter. As long as you have a moral compass, and as long as you do right by others, it doesn't matter what these people say, okay? I can have a million fucking haters. My attitude is not going to change. My goals are not going to change. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. And if over the course of many years, maybe some people realize that they might have been wrong about the way that they initially approached me because they saw these fucking clips out of context, or they just engaged in the pile-on, great, sure. I'll welcome you with open arms. And if you don't do that, it's still fine. Okay? I saw one comment that I thought was really funny, though, on that LSF post, and I want to read it. I wonder if it's still there. There was one comment that was really funny. Someone was like, where was it? There was a person that literally was like, yo, Hasan is the only person that people would like yell at. Hasan is the only person that would yell at, that would get yelled at for like, you know, saving people from a burning house. And then someone immediately proved the point by getting mad at this hypothetical that someone had suggested by being like, yeah, he would just like set up his camera. Like they literally got mad at a hypothetical that someone else suggested. Like at that point, it's like, dude, what are you doing with your life? You know? I love and hate reading comments. You learn so much in so little. Yeah, it's just like, it doesn't really matter because most people still are just like, it's literally turning human beings into simply pieces of entertainment and content while claiming it's about humanizing them. Hasan and hypocrisy, name a better duo. It's like I've fucking fundraised and worked with people that work with homeless people so many times. Like this isn't the first time that I'm doing this. You know what I mean? It's so stupid. Like there was a very specific purpose for why we went there directly. And that purpose is very obvious, right? Bro, didn't we raise over 100K? No, I don't think so. I don't know where that came from. I don't know what the exact number is. But like, that's a crazy thing. Like, that's just like the exact opposite of what happened. It's the exact opposite of what happened. Hasan, the only streamer who will get a hate threat helping out some homeless people. Well, yeah. And I think it's a combination of things. It's a combination of things. It's like people that just like hate socialism and see me as like the fucking inventor of socialism because they're stupid, right? I think like that's part of it. I think it's because people are just like very cynical. People are unimaginably cynical, especially online. I don't mean for this to sound like I'm talking down to you, but genuinely, what is the reason for addressing people like this publicly? I mean, people see this kind of stuff, and I want to make sure that if they're coming in here with, you know, with a false understanding of what's going on, like why there's so much hate, because I see this all the time. People are like, why the fuck do people hate this guy? I don't understand. Anyway, what is this? I'm leaving. Can you just shut the fuck up, please? Can all of you just collectively shut your stupid fucking woke mouths up? Is that okay? Can we just shut the fuck up collectively? Can you just shut the Yeah. It's so funny because like those people would despise, like people that normally shit on me or use me yelling at those people as a moment to be like, Hasan always yells at his own community. It's like, which one is it? Do I have a hug box? Fuck up. Do I have a hug box and an echo chamber? Or am I constantly fucking yelling at people who step out of line? You know what I mean? They're like, oh, Hasan always wants a hug box. And then they're like, oh, Hasan is always crashing out at people that disagree with him. But it's also like the same people that you despise too. Dude could save a baby from a burning building, and someone somewhere would find an insane interpretation of events that imply he's exploiting someone, being a bad socialist, or is doing terrorism. Dude could do it without running to get his camera first. Dude, I'll save the baby, but only if I can video myself while doing it, dude. I'm trying to humanize the burning baby, dude. What don't you understand, dude? You just did the thing. Oh my God. My man invented a hypothetical to clown on you guys for making up weird reasons to hate on, and you literally found a way to hate on it. That's fucking amazing. How are you like this? It's just like, it's mental illness, man. Like, there's no other way to, like, if you're getting mad at a hypothetical where I'm saving a baby from a burning building that I didn't even make up, someone else made that up to imply how unimaginably frustrating some of these people are. But like, that's just mental illness. Like, what the fuck? And by the way, the irony of that thread that went viral is that was before I even went out. That is before I even went to Skid Row. Okay? Like, think about that. Not a single person in that fucking Reddit thread actually watched the content or understood what I was trying to do. Like, they just didn't. They don't care. The reason why I'm talking about all of this, okay? The reason why I'm talking about all of this is because I need you to understand it's all just noise, and it's never coming from it's never coming from like a valid criticism. It's usually narcissistic and vindictive and cynical. And ultimately, it's meaningless. What matters infinitely more is the impact that you have in your community. What matters infinitely more is not like faceless, lifeless losers online yelling about whatever the fuck you're doing in the most smarmy, idiotic, cynical way possible. What matters more is actually going out and helping people, doing right by others. Okay? Hasan, can we stop with the parasocial online drama shit every single day? This is literal slop and white noise coming from 4 follower accounts on Twitter is absolutely meaningless, so I just don't understand why it gets addressed every time. I am using this as an opportunity to draw a larger point. That's it. All right. They were wrongfully precogging that you were going to do Tyler Oliveira style thing where you shove a camera in someone's face and film them while calling the drug addicts. They love that shit, but they pretend to be these woke, caring people to try to dunk on you with nothing to stand on. Exactly. All right. But yeah, I mean, it's not just an anarchist thing, mutual aid, but I will give props. Like, it's different. Mr. B said before that he gets the most hate when he does the philanthropy videos, and said that if he made some bullshit 100 people in a circle video that costs the same amount of money, he'd get infinitely less hate. Yeah. Look, I think here's what is going on here, okay? Look. There are a lot of people online that make this kind of content their entire thing. Okay? And they do it in a way that I don't think is productive. I think always focusing on the systemic harm and always ensuring that you're humanizing every single person that you are encountering is the appropriate way to go about it. And that's precisely what I did yesterday. And I'm very proud of this community for fundraising in the process. Also, the other part of this that we didn't even talk about is that they were HasnAbi heads. Like, this is one of you guys. He's probably in the chat right now. Well, he might be in Skid Row right now working. But that's the other thing. Like, that's why I do what I do. There's so many of you that go out and work on the street. You know what I mean? This is why I want to get more people to engage in this, because the reality of the matter is you are not going to be able to, we can't rely just exclusively on the government. It's just not happening. Okay. I'm not an anarchist by any means, as you guys know. I'm not an advocate for decentralized movements in general. I think that they oftentimes fall apart. And they have, I have theoretical disagreements with it. Okay? But having said that, all you have are your neighbors at the end of the day sometimes, okay? When there's no one else. The only people that you can rely on are going to be like-minded individuals, okay? Do as you do, not as you say. Wait, what? So boring, Jesus Christmas? No, do as I do and also as I say. What are you talking about? Can you read my last message? It speaks to what is this? When I was 13, we went on a mission trip to Florida and fed, clothed a bunch of homeless people and then sat around and ate and chatted with them. A small town kid who had never met a homeless person before. I had only seen them demonized in the news and media. I consider that moment the beginning of my anti-capitalist radicalization because I realized then and there that everything I had been told was a lie and these people are victims of a broken society. Yeah, that's exactly what this is about. Because every fucking person is like, their understanding of homeless people is like the person who is like literally at the worst, like in the most extreme position, okay? Most extreme version of that suffering that you see on the streets, experiencing like a mental health episode or something. And people are fearful. People are genuinely fearful of homeless people. And the media also portrays them as like zombies, basically. The anti-homeless hatred is an oddly American-specific process, very marginal in Western Europe. I think one of the craziest parts about this, thank you. I think one of the craziest things was like Hawk and Glenn were both over the age of 65. Okay? Hawk was 70 years old. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Okay, what the fuck are we doing as a society? If a 70-year-old is sleeping in a fucking tent, a 70-year-old has no expectation of being a productive laborer anyway. Like, there is no expectation that that person is supposed to be working anyway. Like, it's over. They are in the autumn of their lives. Okay, they are supposed to be chilling at a home inside of permanent shelter. Like, this is what a normal society is supposed to do. Take care of people that have contributed in meaningful ways their whole lives, or even if they haven't contributed in meaningful ways, it doesn't matter. When you're 70 years old, like, the fact that there's a 70-year-old out there that is homeless is like having a child that is homeless. You know what I mean? It's insanely fucked up. Anyway, here's a fun
Hey, you gotta
part
wear the whole
about this.
tracksuit.
Yeah. Who? My cousin.
The NF team.
We have a lot of
dog.
my cousin Ralph.
Robin Banks, thank you for the 10
We have
gifted.
a lot of like untested merch.
I'm obsessed with him. What?
I need everything.
We got some toys, and I'll bring some.
He's chewing on all my
Yeah, I can
cords.
tell. He's chewing everything.
Yeah, he's chewing everything.
We got some dog stuff.
I got raincoats and stuff here.
He's amazing.
Yeah. We asked people who lived in homeless encampments that were cleared out in city sweeps to write about what object was the hardest for them to lose. They took my baby pictures of my mom's obituaries, a 29-year-old in California wrote. That was in my duffel bag. They also took my leather motorcycle vest worth $300 and my whole tent setup. Yeah, big shout out to March as well. Big shout out to obviously Sade and everyone else working every single day, day in, day out to help these people. Big shout out to Lolo for setting it up, but also a huge shout out to March for, as always, being so careful and making sure that we are not filming anyone without prior consent. You know, he did a great job. What? You got some crazy delusional people, man. Hasan donating Teddy Fresh clothing designed by Ethan and Hewlett homeless individuals with the intention of provoking a negative reaction by saying, but they're crazy. Try to make the recipients feel comfortable, criticizing the clothes he was giving them. What are you, dude? Why are you showing me this? This is This is just mental illness in display, dude. What the fuck? First of all, I don't even think they have any, like, that person that's saying that doesn't even know doesn't know the full story at all, doesn't realize that, like, it was clothing that I had, that I wasn't wearing, that had, you know, it was clothing from numerous organizations, like merchandise from numerous organizations. That's number one. Number two, the idea that, like, Ethan and Gila are going to get mad is also ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, disagreements aside, you're just making that inference. You know what I mean? Why the fuck are you making that inference for them? You're making them look bad. If you're a fan, okay, if you're a fan of Ethan Klein and Gila, and you are in your mind duking out this battle, if you're saying that they're going to be upset and just operating under the assumption that they're going to be upset, you're just making them fucking look bad. And it wasn't just like Teddy Fresh either. There was merch from virtually every content creator in that pile. You know? And there was my own merchandise as well in there. I don't understand why this would be a negative thing anyway. I don't mean to undermine the homeless in LA, but as someone who hadn't been in LA in the past 3 years, it wasn't nearly as bad as people make it out to be. Sure, it's bad and it's gotten worse, but nowhere near as bad as people make it seem. It's pretty bad, man. It's pretty fucking bad, I think. Anyway, I like that my overarching goal here is to tell people to fuck all the noise. Why are you wearing masks? Homeless people are a very vulnerable population, and they obviously don't have access to immediate medical care. And considering that that's a major issue, the organization Waterdrop LA has the practice of using a mask. I'm not gonna fucking debate them on this matter. Like, they are the most knowledgeable. Why the fuck would I ever debate them? I would say a lot of your videos help. I stopped masking because of societal notions and sensory issues, but I'm realizing not everyone who wears it doesn't like it either, but is needed.
Masking like a week ago, and let's talk about it. The first thing I want to say is that in 2021, when people took off their masks, it took me a little bit longer than most, I'd say, but I too took off my mask.
The homeless population is an especially vulnerable population. And, you know, I'm not going to fucking... Two reasons. One, I'm not going to fucking go in there and just, like, you know, spread my germs on the people that already have, like, a hard time getting medical help, much needed medical help. That's number one. Number two, it's their protocol. Fuck am I supposed to do? Debate them and be like, oh no, I'm going to not wear a mask. Excuse me, I'm not putting a fucking chin diaper on. It's like, thank you for all you do, but I'm not fucking doing that. Like, what a ridiculous thing. You know? Why do you care? Look, this person, it's off topic. But I think you need to make a stronger effort to address your admitted misogynistic blind spots. No, I'm a misogynist. Please leave me alone. I hate women. Please. Please. We saw the toxic gas coming out of your mouth in the car. It could be a war crime to expose homeless to that. Yeah. People are mad at the Twitch community donating to their mutual aid community, and because that wasn't the poverty class aiding the homeless class crashing out because the bootstraps didn't lift up the other. Yeah, I mean, but it's not even a fucking bootstrap, really. Like, it's not even a bootstrap in that situation. This is like a fucking Band-Aid on a hemorrhaging wound, okay? And people get mad. People don't even want to admit that the wound exists. People don't want to even see the Band-Aid. And people get mad when you actually even offer a Band-Aid. Like, it's the most fucked up situation. Okay? Homeless people and convicts, like the way that Americans treat less fortunate people is just incredible. Did Lolo really understay his welcome? Is he gone? No. He'll be back in a little bit. But yeah, I wanted to cover that. And I wanted to talk about that. You farting in the car was hilarious. Irrelevant side note. I wasn't farting, I was burping. But probably was worse than farts, to be honest.
Getting worried. I got
Yeah, no, he's nervous. Oh,
right.
yeah.
It's okay, baby. Don't worry.
That's
Don't
a cute
worry.
one, though.
It's okay, baby. Don't worry.
I think it's interesting you talk about having good faith arguments, but you can't even have an honest conversation about your misogyny and alienating your female audience. Dude, how do you not understand what you're doing right now? You have to recognize what you're doing right now. Okay, this is the last comment that I'm going to address before I just keep continuously suspending people for like a day or like a week. Okay? If I were to address your misunderstanding of what I've said because you saw a clip out of context every single time people came in here, making it seem as though they have a very valid claim, okay? This stream would just be me repeating it over and over again, okay? And I don't know if you recognize that you're doing that. I don't know if you are doing it deliberately. Maybe you're not doing it deliberately. It feels like you just joined just now to say this. You know what I mean? You've never like said anything in the community before. And like it just reads as bait. It doesn't read as like a good faith critique. Like, I don't know why you just like desperately, it feels like you're desperately invested in someone recognizing you in a relatively larger community, you know? It doesn't feel like a valid critique. It's just a way to continue the drama in your mind. Coming in here, saying this, having me most likely respond in an angry fashion so that you can clip out the angry response and then post it on Twitter and then be like, Hasan can never take good faith critiques. Have you noticed Hasan can never take good faith critiques? You know? Like, it's very strange. It's not even critique. Look at the start of the comment. It's a classic just curious slight. Exactly. It barely tracks as like it barely tracks as a good faith critique. Also, I think what you guys I think people that come in here who genuinely are confused about this stuff because they got primed. For people that get primed from this shit, I need you to understand that being overtly and openly misogynistic online is a benefit. Okay? Why would I get called a flaming homosexual from every one of those openly and overtly misogynistic red pill accounts instead of adopting hyper misogyny and running with it if I was a grifter who has these, you know, underlying tendencies? I would just be like, women are bitches and fucking celebrate the incoming subscriptions. You don't have to be aesthetically pleasing or particularly smart You can be a gross piece of shit and just say those words, and other gross pieces of shit will shower you in admiration. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of stupid grift am I running here? Thank you, Themasius, for the playlist. Considering how intentionally misrepresented you are online, I think people who come here with bad impression could just benefit from listening for a while. Your politics and values become very clear in a short amount of time. Exactly. Stick around for a while and you'll figure out. You can make up your own mind. I believe you. Okay? I know that you have the capability of coming to your own conclusions. If you have any sort of opinions about, like, if you've ever seen something and it primed you into believing that I'm like a bad person or have bad takes or whatever, just kick back for a little bit, let it play in the background, and make up your own mind about what I truly believe. You know? That's it. Netflix executives want to have characters narrate their actions so audience can understand. Maybe the whole you can make up your own mind ship has sailed. Probably. Listen, it is much more important to closely police openly feminist creators with out-of-context clips instead of actually confronting power as the easy 10K likes. Yeah. Yeah. What's even more disappointing about these sorts of comments is that they simultaneously perpetuate misogyny by suggesting that women only watch you because you're hot when trying to critique your supposedly misogynistic takes. Ultimately, it's an unproductive conversation. I know. Yeah. People who are routinely looking to eliminate misogyny wherever it exists are so quick to just be like, all of Hasan's fans, all of Hasan's female fans are thirsty. They're just thirsty. That's why they're watching him, because they're horny for him. And it's like, Jesus Christ, dude. Okay. As a feminist, I believe Hasan's female fan base are all dumb broads who are just horny and can't think with anything else. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, they don't even talk about how horny the male fans are. All right. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about the South Korean passenger plane crash, which was devastating, and I don't understand what the fuck's going on. I don't understand what the hell is happening here with all these plane crashes. People are quick to say it's Boeing's fault, but we shall see. Only time will tell.
Plane crash in South Korea, one of the worst aviation disasters in that country's history.
Here's what we know. The passenger jet operated by Jeju Air, the country's largest low-cost airline, seen in flames after skidding off a runway and crashing into a concrete wall. Look at that smoke.
Just so tragic. Nearly everyone on board losing their lives.
So there's a couple things I don't understand about this. One, normally pilots, when they do a crash landing, they're supposed to dump the fuel, right? I don't know if they did that because the plane did erupt in flames, but maybe that's because of the impact. Number two, I thought that usually at the end of that runway in most airports, instead of a concrete slab, they often have a dirt pile so that on impact, it doesn't do exactly what you just saw. Like, I thought that it's supposed to be like a mound of dirt, basically, because when it's a mound of dirt and the plane does a crash landing like this, or there's like any sort of issue where it needs to have a hard impact landing, it doesn't fucking explode. So those are some of the things that those are some of the things that I don't understand in terms of like my limited knowledge of how airplanes work. But having said that, it did come in pretty fast. Normally they also add like the they just like spray foam or whatever. I think it's like I forget what it's called, but there's some kind of foam that they're like an anti-flammable foam that they're supposed to spray in a situation like that as well. But that sometimes has a capacity to like make the impact even or make the crash landing go even faster rather than the friction that you get. Yeah, like a flame retardant thing. But so the foam makes it slipperier, so there's not enough friction, and then therefore you end up crashing even faster. So I guess that's the reason why they didn't do that. The Kazakhstan crash, they dumped as much fuel as they could, but they didn't have enough time to get it all out, and they had to try to land. Yeah. But ultimately, yeah, there have been 4 aviation-related incidents in 1 week. It's getting pretty crazy out here, but I don't know what the actual reason for this is.
Many questions this morning. Why did the plane land on its belly, and why wasn't it slowing down? Transportation officials saying that the pilot sent out a distress signal shortly before that crash. Now, we've got to warn you here. Some of the video you're about to watch is very difficult to see. Overnight, a terrifying passenger plane crash killing nearly 200 people in South Korea in one of the nation's worst air disasters. The Jeju Air Boeing 737 carrying 181 passengers and crew exploding into flames when it slammed into a wall after something went terribly wrong while landing.
No one tell Cutie, chat, I think she's going to hear about this. It's a pretty big story. Especially when there's like a lot. I mean, look, air travel is still incredibly safe regardless of the many incidents that have taken place. It's you know, tens of thousands of commercial airliners flying all around the globe, and 4 out of that is still, you know, statistically irrelevant. But regardless, obviously, when you see something like this, it's hard to contend with that because you're so powerless. You're usually powerless in most instances. But I understand why people have this additional fear of you know, dying in a plane.
At Muan International Airport. Smoke billowing into the air, cameras capturing these images near the crash site. At least 177 people killed in the disaster, and that number is expected to rise, with officials saying nearly everyone on board is presumed dead. The families of the passengers on board gathering in an airport lounge distraught as fire officials read the names of the victims. Jeju Air's CEO expressing his deepest apology and accepting responsibility for the crash as the company's top executive. In the video, you can see that the 15-year-old jet landed without its landing gear deployed, the plane landing on its belly at a very high speed.
Like that concrete wall, like I don't understand. It's a very long runway from what people are saying in the chat. And I'm surprised that there's like a concrete wall at the end of it.
Speed, then veering off the runway before slamming head-on into that concrete wall. The plane then bursting into flames, thick black smoke billowing into the air, debris scattered all over the ground. In the wreckage, only the plane's tail still recognizable. Local transportation officials saying before landing, the control tower issued a warning of a bird strike, and the pilot sent a distress signal immediately afterwards. Just a minute later, they say, the pilot issued a mayday and tried landing the plane.
It wasn't a wall, it's a guidance system. Yeah, it looks like there were antennas on top of the wall, so I don't know.
Emergency crews rescuing 2 crew members. In a statement, Boeing saying, "We extend our deepest condolences to the families who lost loved ones, and our thoughts remain with the passengers and crew." And there is still a lot that we don't know here, but we did learn that this particular plane had diverted to Seoul yesterday while on the way to Beijing, but it's unclear why it diverted. We also know that Jeju Air has a very strong safety record as a South Korean low-cost.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like the Jeju Air is like the southwest of South Korea, but like they have from what I understand, they have a pretty fucking solid safety record. Like they have a pretty solid track record.
Carrier. There was just one other incident almost 2 decades ago when a plane overshot a runway. Only 6 people had minor injuries then. Joining us now is ABC News contributor and aviation analyst John Nance. John, thank you so much for being here this morning for this very disturbing story. Based on what we've seen so far, what do you think happened?
We've got a mystery here, Gio. There's no question about it. You don't land with your landing gear up if you have time to put it down. There's an alternate method, even if you've lost all hydraulics. So why did they land with the gear up? Was it a situation where they had another emergency that we don't understand yet in the cockpit, or was there something else, including just forgetting to put it down in the middle of an emergency?
John, another thing that we notice here in this video is that the plane just isn't slowing down, even when it's landing on its belly. Some airports have those crush pads at the end of runways to slow them down. Is that something investigators are going to look at here?
They will look at it, and they'll look at the application of that worldwide, for that matter. But the problem is, with a crush pad, you still got to be aligned with the runway. If they veered off, which appears to be the case, they would not necessarily have gone into a crush pad if there'd been one at the end of the runway.
And John, something else that we've seen in this video, the plane hit that wall, and that's that very disturbing moment that we see that was captured there. It's very possible that the plane would have been fine if it hadn't hit that wall. Why is that wall even there?
That's a good question. I don't know why it's there, and I don't know where it is in regard to the center line of the runway. You don't want anything in the way of the aircraft as you're coming down a runway. And if you're landing gear up, there's no training for us as pilots in terms of how long it's going to take, how much extra time if you're skidding. Of course, you also don't have any directional control at that point after you've dropped the speed maybe under 100 knots. So a lot of questions here, and some of them are extremely serious in terms of future.
And we know that Boeing is actually sending investigators there, of course, because this is one of their planes. When you look at this and you look at Boeing and people look at other Boeing incidents earlier this.
Whenever this stuff happens, immediately, because there's so many moving parts, because there's so much division amongst like different parts, everybody starts pointing the finger of blame at other places immediately. Boeing will say, oh, it's pilot error. Pilots will say, or the airliner will say it's Boeing's issue. We don't know yet. We have no idea. There will be an investigation, obviously, and it's not even a Boeing we investigated ourselves and we found ourselves not guilty type situation at all. I don't think it works like that. It doesn't work like that at all. It's there is going to be government investigations. Usually this is one of the things that like the entire industry would collapse if there was an air of like, if people thought that this was commercial air traffic was unsafe, then the entire industry would fall apart. Do you understand? Which is precisely the reason why, in order for this industry to continue operating, they have to be as careful as possible. Now, obviously, having said that, capitalism does have a tendency to cut corners. And we've certainly seen that with many of the Boeing-related incidents. There's also the other side of things. I'm not speaking for Korea when I say this, but specifically in America, there have been many initiatives from for-profit commercial air travel companies that want to limit the number of people that like limit the number of pilots, for example, to reduce the number of pilots from 2 to 1 pilot specifically, which is devastating and very scary. You have to have a million redundancies in order to make sure that this process is as safe as possible. It's something that the unions have been able to push back on. So it's yet another instance where labor power is incredibly important in protecting people. you just have to, you know, never. You can't overlook the interest of profiteers in cutting corners, even if it's at the cost of human lives and the cost of safety, and then the cost of like long-term profit loss too. Because, like I said, if people are fearful of flying because these incidents keep happening over and over again, you're not going to have as many people willing to travel. Once there is this, once this boundary is broken and people, like masses get terrified of flight, they're going to, you know, these industries will fall apart.
Year. Is this something that you're going to be saying, well, wait a minute, maybe there's a problem with this particular jet, or no, because it's a 15-year-old jet?
Well, first of all, the 737 is probably the most ubiquitous aircraft out there, along with the Airbus A320. I don't think there's anything that's indicated so far that might be a generic problem with the airplane. Very simple systems. But the thing is, until we know exactly what happened in those last few minutes, we really won't know the application. But I would be very surprised if there was anything that was a problem with this particular model aircraft.
All right, aviation analyst and former pilot John Nance, thank you so much for joining us here on GMA, as always. Thank you. Janae?
And Gio, the questions that you were asking, John said good questions, but all questions that we're all wondering.
Local fire officials and aviation experts say some sort of landing gear malfunction was likely. There's also speculation from officials that this may have been caused by a bird strike. The pilot also made a Mayday call shortly after the control tower warned about birds in the area. According to FlightAware, the Jeju airliner was listed as a Boeing 737 traveling from Bangkok, Thailand, before it crash landed at the Muan airport in South Korea. That's in the southwest part of the country. This is the country's worst air disaster in decades. CNN's Mike Valerio has been following this breaking news story from Seoul. Mike, update us on the investigation and where things stand now.
Well, I would say that probably the most dramatic element, Amra, under the floodlights that are illuminating the crash site here is...
No, 15 years old is not old for an airplane at all. Number one. Number two, those things get fucking updated pretty frequently. And not only that, but the reason why you hear Boeing a lot more is because, I mean, there's virtually two major companies, is Airbus and Boeing. And Boeing has a lot of fleets all around the globe. So you're going to have a lot more. You're going to hear a lot more from Boeing. And that they're, whenever these things happen, there's a lot of media attention surrounding it because it's a complete disaster. You have 200 people just dying with one crash. So it's just... Those are some of the reasons why. You know, people pay close attention to it, and you hear names being thrown around like this.
just the urgent effort to try to find...
Also, Boeing is obviously a corner cutter, like a pretty aggressive corner cutter as well in their newer fleets too. And there have been many instances, many high-profile instances where it is directly the fault of the company and their cost-cutting initiatives. But the initial suspicion is a bird strike. But video allegedly showing the moment of the bird strike, one of the two survivors told the doctors he had already been rescued when he woke in the hospital. But like, even if one bird is capable of taking out one of the engines, I mean, there's still so many extra questions here as to like why the fucking landing gear didn't why didn't they bring out the landing gear? Did it? Because it's not supposed to affect the landing gear. And again, they have a million redundancies for stuff like this. Okay. Like, bird strikes happen. Like, bird strikes happen. They fly around. You know what I mean? It's not supposed to impact the flaps. It's not supposed to impact the landing gear. There's also a second engine. Like planes are incredibly safe. As far as like the million different redundancies built into the process, like and what pilots are trained on, they're basically, Austin is saying, call me on Discord. Oh, hell yeah, Austin is around. Okay, great. I think it's important to hear from an aviation expert, aviation safety expert here in times like this. So I will be calling him right now. Okay. Hello.
You hear me?
Wait, where are you?
Oh, shit, why is my camera on?
Wait, turn it on.
Well, no, I'm at the. Well, I'll get in my car first. Let me get in my car.
Okay, get in your car and put it on horizontal, and then turn your camera on.
Okay, hold on. Just a second.
Boeing's #1 PR person? No, neither myself nor Austin are going to defend Boeing unless it's something that is defensible. But I think
Boeing here. All right, nobody's defending Boeing. Let's see. Oh shit! Hold.
Okay. Hello? All right.
Hold on. Let me position my phone.
Wow. You got the M power right there. Okay, I lost you, by the way.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, hold on. Let me transfer.
Boom.
Boom. Okay. Well, I'm joining you from my satellite phone. Here at the scene of the crash, I flew out immediately when I saw it.
Okay. Let's not, dude, 200 people died. Let's not make, let's not.
No, look, here's the deal. The first plane crash was. Have you covered the first one in Russia?
Yeah, I mean that one is very clearly the work of that one is very clearly the work of anti-air. That was a surface-to-air missile.
Right. So the second one was a Boeing 737-800 in South Korea that had some sort of failure, hydraulic failure. This is all speculative for the record, but this is what I think happened. Had some sort of hydraulic failure that led to the loss of the ability to put down the landing gear, which led to the pilots having to do a belly landing. Now, obviously, a hydraulic failure is not a unique to Boeing thing. A hydraulic failure could happen in any aircraft. I'm not trying to defend Boeing. I'm just saying the obvious. So because I don't think it's productive to be like, oh my God, you should be terrified to fly. Because this is what often happens with these disasters.
Yeah.
Think people, you shouldn't be scared to fly. It's still very safe. You're hearing about it on the news because it is so rare. That being said, there was a hydraulic. I think there was some sort of hydraulic failure that led to the landing gear not being able to come down, which led to the pilots having to do a belly landing. Now, if you see in the video, I don't know if you've seen the video, but if you see in the video, there was the flaps were up, which means that they weren't retracted. Usually on a landing, you have your flaps down. The pilots either made the decision to not to have the flaps up, or that was a part of the hydraulic failure, because you need hydraulics to bring the flaps down. And if they're the same system that's tied to the landing gear, I'm not sure how that actually works. But if that system was affected, then they wouldn't be able to bring down the flaps. The other thing I was thinking about is if maybe.
But there's a backup. There's always a backup.
Yeah, there's always redundancies, but I mean sometimes those also fail. I don't know what obviously I would imagine the redundancies also failed, which is why the landing gear wasn't able to come down, nor were the flaps. The
Yeah, there's someone in the chat that's also saying this. The landing gear can deploy via gravity, which I'm pretty sure that's the case. And they also deploy it early enough that they can go and try a second approach, which they didn't.
Yeah. So I mean, so that's the other thing I'm going to get to. I don't want to, obviously, you know, rest in peace to. I think the pilots probably perished in this if they were at the bruit of the impact.
Yeah.
I don't want to speculate to their skill or lack thereof or whatever, but I do think based on the first photo or the video that I saw, and I don't know if was it their first or second attempt.
I don't know if they did a 2 attempts. Did they do 2 attempts?
I don't know.
The chat is saying this is their second landing attempt. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So and did they, and ask the chat, did they have 2 working engines on the second attempt? Because I heard from somebody they were on a single engine. Regardless, they were capable of going around. And on the second attempt, I don't know if you saw this, but if you're coming in, so if you're flying in, what the pilots would be trying to do is get the aircraft at as low of a speed as possible when they touch the ground. And you can kind of see that as they're coming in. So what they're going to do that is they're going to lift the nose up and almost get the aircraft to a point where it's basically stalling. So it's like essentially at a very, very low airspeed, and you're just like touching the ground. The plane is incapable of any lift whatsoever. But what ended up happening is it backfired and they drifted too far down the runway. So when they actually touched down, they only had half of the runway left. And I believe this was like a 9,000-foot runway, which is a relatively short runway. I mean, it's not the shortest. For reference, LAX has between a 10,000 and 12,000-foot runway. Burbank has a 6,000-foot runway. So it's not like exactly the Burbank, California, that is. So it's not like the shortest runway in the world. But still, you use up about half of it. Maybe let's say there's 4,500 feet left. You don't give yourself that much of a chance to stop, especially when you don't have flaps and you don't have any. You know, there's no you have no landing gear, so you have no brakes. So you know, I think that in hindsight, obviously that's probably an error. They probably should have tried to go around again. But again, I don't know how much fuel they had on board. I don't know if both engines were working. There's a lot of things we don't know. So it's easy to sit here and say, okay, they should have gone around when maybe they were also having a fuel emergency. Somebody mentioned, what's the airline called? Jeju Air or something?
Jeju, yeah.
Yeah, Jeju Air is from what I understand, is a low-cost carrier, and a lot of low-cost carriers encourage their captains to take minimum fuel. And so they may have had a fuel emergency. So there's a lot of things that we don't know, but based on what we see, I think of the things we're most confident in, it's probably some sort of hydraulic failure. And the pilots definitely overshot the spot of the runway in which they should have come down in. So that's what I would say, based on just what I would say. The other thing is, I really don't think this needs to, again, and this is not in defense of Boeing, okay? Because I have no horse in the race when it comes to Boeing, but this shouldn't make you fearful of flying. This shouldn't be a conversation about you shouldn't feel safe to get on an aircraft.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to encourage, because what the media is going to do is you're going to see a lot of every aviation related incident is now going to be reported.
Yeah.
So from engine failures to bird strikes to things that may happen more frequently than you know will be big media stories, because they're capitalizing on clicks and the fear that you have of flying. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So overall, what's your personal speculation on the matter? What do you think is the likely scenario? Bird strike an engine, and then they just maybe failed to deploy the landing gear manually?
Well, so I saw the bird strike. So is a bird strike a factor in this? Because I saw a video of a bird strike.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was a bird strike, then they're working with one engine. And so you can still go around with one engine. You can still fly on one engine. it just makes it harder. I mean, I don't know if you and I flew. So Hasan, this is the 737-800 is the plane that you and I flew in, the simulator.
Yeah.
That is the plane that we flew. And we were able to do a single engine. We were able to fly it with the single engine. So it is possible. And you are also able to fly without hydraulics, but I don't know what degree. It's really hard to speculate because we don't know to what degree the failure impacted the systems of the aircraft. So in my heart of hearts, I want to assume that the pilots did everything that they could and they're experts. And I mean, they had thousands of flying hours, so I imagine they did everything they possibly could. But I would speculate that, the reason for the overshoot was the fact that they sort of glided it, down half of the runway and ended up, not going around. But they may not have been capable to go around. So it's hard to sit here and be like, they should have gone around. They may not have had enough fuel, or something like that, because it's pretty obvious to go around at that point. You're halfway down the runway. You know what I mean? And
why do you think there was a giant concrete wall at the end of that runway? I don't know if it because it was doing a belly crash landing that maybe it just went out of control and got off the runway. But I thought that normally it's supposed to have a dirt mound at the end of that runway so that what we saw with that initial impact explosion is not supposed to happen. Is the Boeing plane that we're talking about, does it have the capability of dumping fuel? And is there a reason as to why they didn't? And also, last but not least, the question I have is was the flames that we saw, the fact that the plane engulfed in flames, is that just simply because of the remaining fuel, or does that happen even if there isn't fuel in the plane, is what I mean?
I mean, I think it happens regardless. If as far as I'm aware, I think that even if a plane doesn't have any fuel, I think it's going to explode. There's a lot of other things that could blow up. I have no idea. Honestly, that's outside of my realm of expertise. Let me start with your question about the wall, the perimeter wall. I imagine it just depends on the airfield. Like for example, at the end of LAX, it's the Pacific Ocean, and there is a perimeter wall, I think, around LAX for security and things like that. It just depends. It just depends on the airport. Depends on what's around the airport. Sure, some airports have probably dirt mounds. Like if you're looking at an airport like Denver's out in the middle of nowhere, and so you just don't. I'm sure there's not as much of a requirement for some sort of perimeter wall.
There's a Boeing 737 pilot in the chat says you can deploy flaps with an electric motor as backup, and the gear hydraulic system A is not connected to the flaps. Hydraulic system B, and no, they can't dump fuel on the B 737.
You can't dump fuel on the 737? Huh.
That's what he's saying.
News to me. I guess he's a pilot, so I obviously don't know. I guess you can't, but you can burn fuel off.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, no, they do not. It says that Boeing 737 all models do not have Boeing 737 all models, the DC-9, MD-80, Boeing 717, and the A320 family, and various regional jet aircraft do not have fuel dump systems installed. I wonder if that's a cost cutting. Do you think that's a cost cutting measure?
I don't know. In the U.S., though, I've heard of various failures and things that occur, and you need to have an emergency landing. And a lot of these planes will fly in circles for hours. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember in the mid 2000s, there was a JetBlue flight that had a landing gear that came down, and it was the front landing gear was twisted. It was a huge live. It was broadcasted live. And I think they flew around for a long time to burn all the excess fuel. So I think typically instead of if you can't dump it, this is what they would do. But I think the problem is they may have been on one engine. So I don't know what the procedures of the given airline would be, but if you're having one engine, you got to land as quickly as possible. I don't know. Maybe that's the procedure. Hey, Hasan, I got to turn my camera off and I just got to go to audio.
Okay.
One second.
You got to start driving? No, it's all good. I mean, we don't have to take up more of your time. I'm going to go back to the CNN experts. If you hear something that I'm talking about that you have input in, you can hit me back.
But one thing I can say, and the Boeing pilot should back me up on this, don't fall for this is some sort of, I'm not a Boeing, look, I'm not in the pocket of big Boeing, okay? But I just am so annoyed. It's not even about defending Boeing. It's the fact that it's just not a productive conversation to have until we know all the facts. The Boeing 737 has been in service for over 30 years in different variations.
Yeah.
So it's not, the MAX plane was a new variation that had a lot of problems, and Boeing should have to pay for those issues. But the Boeing 737 as a plane has been a very try and true safe plane over many generations. So I don't think this is reason to not want to get on a Boeing plane. There's a lot of other factors at play here. Anyway, that's all.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Austin Show, a resident pilot /
not
aviation.
in the pocket of Boeing. In fact, I prefer to fly Airbus. Actually fly.
Resident Boeing defender in the pocket of Big Boeing.
I'm not in the pocket of Big Boeing. I promise.
Thank you, Austin. Your Boeing check is in the mail. All right. Bye. Okay. That was Austin Show. Like I said, commercial airline pilot, aviation expert. Okay, he has logged flight hours, FAA trackable flight hours. He is not an actual pilot though. He just likes to he just knows a lot. And I wanted to bring in my own aviation expert / correspondent, and the people that were talking shit about him and his background, fuck you.
2 sets of remains that are of the passengers who are unaccounted for right now. I'll tell you, we've had such a whiplash, chain of events as we followed this story throughout the day here in South Korea. And there was so much hope, Amra, as you mentioned, after the 2 people were found, the survivors in the back of the plane, the 2 crew members were rescued and made it out with their lives. There was hope from a whole host of emergency responders that perhaps a third or a fourth person could be found alive as well. But that hope quickly diminished after the noon hour here in South Korea. So what's happening right now, the 2 survivors are being moved to hospitals here in Seoul. We don't know their exact conditions as of yet, or if they've been able to speak to investigators. But what they have to say will be critical, because the voice and data recorders that comprise the black boxes of this aircraft have both been found. So when you combine those 2 elements, plus the 2 survivors, that could paint a more accurate picture, because there are elements that are in tension of just what happened here. And what we mean by that is we have a whole slew of people who are involved in the investigation, from government officials that have come from Seoul and also more local leaders like the chief of the fire department, who have mentioned that bird strikes, or a bird strike, I should say singular, could have played a role in a cascading series of events that led to the landing gear malfunctioning. But still, from our analysts who we've spoken to over the past couple hours, it's unclear how a potential bird strike would lead to landing gear not coming down, would lead to the flaps on the aircraft wings not coming up to slow down the speed of the aircraft. And it's not clear why exactly this 737-800 landed so far down the runway, very close to the end of the runway, and why there was all of this equipment near the end of the runway, which is what the plane slammed into when it met its cataclysmic end. So there are still so many unanswered questions. But Amra, as you and so many of our viewers have been following, we're coming off a time of martial law, December 3rd into December 4th. We're now on our 3rd person who's holding the powers of the president because of the impeachment saga that has been going on since December 3rd. So to say that this has cast a new pall over the country, I would say, is such an understatement, as so many people are in mourning here across South Korea, Amara.
Yeah, just very difficult scenes to watch as this continues to play out. Mike Valerio, thank you very much for your reporting. Let's talk more about this with CNN safety analyst, aviation analyst David Susi. David, you just heard there from Mike that 2 of the black boxes, the data and voice recorder, have been recovered. So obviously we will be learning more in the coming days. But from what we know, also seeing that video where you see the plane landing, you see that the wheels that are used for takeoff and landing are not out when it comes down. And then we've also heard speculation from South Korean officials that this could have been a bird strike playing a factor in this. What is your initial assessment, David?
Well, there were so many different aspects to this and unanswered questions. I don't see any connection between a bird strike and whether the landing gear was able to come up or down or not. I really can't see that those two things are related. However, what can be related is the response to a bird strike. So after you've hit a flock of birds, you may have an engine out, you might have things going on, and that creates a lot of chaos.
I can't stop thinking about that video we watched a few weeks ago about how social ladder system in Korea caused us some smaller crash years ago. Is it possible for some of these things to be happening again? No. I mean, maybe, but I'm pretty sure that they literally took a training protocol seriously after that to change like company culture to ensure that they reformed it. Like that was the point. I mean, I'm gonna assume that that's probably not the case until there's enough evidence for it, especially because in the aftermath of that crash, they literally changed the training structure and the communication structure. That was the point that that video was making about the cultural attitudes playing a role in this tragic incident.
Us in that cockpit, as far as how the aircraft is going to land, where it's going to land on the runway, all of those things. You don't have a lot of options if you overshoot a runway by a little bit, which it appears this happened here, is that you're going to hit in the middle of the runway as you go traverse down it. So that can cause that overspeed condition at the end. But there's so many different unanswered questions. And yes, flight data recorder will give us those answers.
Also, the fact that there was equipment at the end of this runway. You know, what you see is this plane landing. It's careening on its belly, and then you see that it strikes navigation equipment there on the runway, hits a wall, and then bursts into flames. I mean, why is there equipment there on the runway?
You know, that's my biggest question that I have is airports are supposed to be designed where an aircraft can land without landing gear. And if it veers off the runway to one side or the other into the grass, that there isn't obstructions and barriers of this type that are close to the runway. In this case, I haven't quite been able to determine yet, but there's no answer as to why that lighting facility, which is a large piece of concrete equipment, is located exactly where it is. There's no reason in my mind for it to be there. So that would be my next question does the airport meet the standard design criterion for an international airport? So those things will be looked at very closely by the investigators.
If there was an issue, David, with the landing gear, being deployed, would there have been a warning system in place notifying the pilots so they don't attempt to land?
Yes, there is. It'll say gear up, to make you remind yourself to bring the gear up as you have a proximity warning to the ground. So they would have gotten those notices, but by the time you get that, if you are in this situation, and let's say, for example, you come in to land, you don't have another engine, you can't make a go around and try it again. So even though you get those warnings, by the time you get the landing gear down in the position that they were in, you wouldn't have time to get them fully extended. So that may be the problem here, is that they didn't have time to make a go around and assure that the gear had been lowered properly.
David, it's remarkable that we're talking about survivors in yet another plane crash here. 2 survivors, we understand they are crew members who were pulled out of this plane. They were apparently found in the tail of the plane. And I want to ask you this because we've been talking about, I think it was the Azerbaijan airline where you had survivors as well. The plane that was apparently...
yeah, it's the safer part of the plane is the back side of the plane, usually. The closer you are to the tail,
shot down at the skies there. And the survivors from that crash are believed to have been sitting in the rear. Is the rear of the plane the safest part of the air?
Good fuck first class law. Okay, bro, chill. Chill, dog. Fuck. Wait, what? Oh my God. There ain't no fucking dude. 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 Wait, let's see. Oh my God. As of 4 minutes ago, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, former President Jimmy Carter died at the young age of 100. Dog, he was 100. Stop acting like you're Nostradamus. I'm not acting like I'm Nostradamus at all. However, I did say approximately 4 days ago that one of my predictions for 2024 was that Jimmy Carter would pass, and many chatters made fun of me. And I told them, look, there are still a couple days before the year ends. That's the only reason why I'm confused by this. Not because, you know, it is a Mickey Mouse prediction. That is actually wild. That is kind of wild. And the obits are coming out. And of course, this means we got to have the number one Carter hater, Felix Biederman, on the broadcast to talk about this. But like, this is kind of crazy. The tenacious Southerner was turned out of office by disillusioned voters after a single term, but he had a brilliant post-presidential career as a champion of health, peace, and democracy. That is crazy. This was on your list of predictions? Yes. But it's not surprising that this was on my list of predictions. What is surprising is that while this was on my list of predictions, it is a Mickey Mouse one. It is a gimme. It seemed like it was not going to happen. The other two on the list were Bill Clinton and Mitch McConnell. And not only did I thought I got it wrong. I thought he was going to keep it going until 2025. And in the eve of the turn of this year, Bill Clinton went into the hospital, but it was a fever for a flu, and it wasn't that significant. You predict that a man in hospice was going to die and gave a year span to get it right? Okay, first of all, I'm not saying this is a crazy prediction. I think what makes it crazy is that what's crazy is that like it did not happen, and then 4 days ago or whatever, I said like there's still time in this year. Dude, that's a buzzer beater. Like, I'm sorry. That's what makes this unique. Like, nobody thought he was going to live forever. Okay, calm down. Now, of course, Jimmy Carter is a really interesting figure because he has done a lot of personal good. And a lot of Republicans hate him and historically have considered him like the worst president, seeing him as like a beacon of being a pussy pinko commie, right? What's interesting, however, is that Jimmy Carter, throughout his reign, as every American president, was responsible for a tremendous amount of death and destruction and violence all around the world. And maybe even domestically, he was the leading figure in the neoliberal changes that occurred within Democratic leadership, marking an attitude shift in the way that the modern Democratic Party that you absolutely despise, operated. So it is many people that are more knowledgeable than myself will talk about how he was the original neoliberal president. He's not even in his grave yet, so that he can turn in it at this criticism. Okay, first of all, how did he die? The plane crash? No, I think he died because he was at the end of his life, dude. He was at 1 HP for quite a long time. So tomorrow, I think I will probably do a deeper dive into Jimmy Carter to get you to understand the full scope of things. It is one of those unique moments where, like, I do think that even a person who is an otherwise good individual in the helm of power, especially when they are sitting on the throne of empire, American empire, can do a metric ton of evil. Because I do think Jimmy Carter is not a bad person. I think as far as like American presidents goes, like individually, I don't think he is as like openly evil. But given the role that he took on, he did a whole bunch of evil shit. He died because he couldn't handle Kamala's loss. He was supposed to get a cabinet position. Yeah. He was a war criminal like every single one of them after FDR. I mean, yeah. That's hard to disagree. Fuck him. No, as a person, as an individual, I think Jimmy Carter was a pretty good person. Like, he's not like fucking George W. Bush, like, where the humanizing component of George W. Bush is that he paints like he paints the dead Iraqi children that he's responsible for killing. Okay, you're absolutely wrong about this. Come on, dude. Anyway. Jimmy Carter was alive for both the rise and fall of Nazi Germany. Okay? He saw the moon landing. He was alive for the invention of the toast, like the sliced bread. He was alive for the invention of the state of Israel. And perhaps most importantly, Jimmy Carter was alive for Hawk Tuah. And I suspect he was also very taken aback by Haley Welch, also known as Hawk-Tuah Girl, pulling a rug pull on many Americans, including Jimmy Carter. Perhaps this contributed to his untimely demise at the age of 100. The Hawk-Tuah coin rug pull probably played a formative role in his untimely demise. How much money do I think Jimmy C had in Hawk-Tuah coin? A lot. Far too much. From the invention of flight at Kitty Hawk to the collapse of Hawk-Tuah, Jimmy Carter saw it all. Is it fucked up if I say Jimmy Carter saw the rise and fall of Adolf Hitler and perhaps more notably Hawk-Tuah? I mean, it's a joke, but you know, we all know how the internet takes the joke. I did it. I posted it. If heaven is real, Jimmy's farming peanuts for Jesus. I don't know if any American president goes to heaven, chatter. If there is a heaven and hell, I don't think any American president is going to heaven. There is not enough atonement that you can engage in personally. I think that debt will be paid. And yes, not even Carter, who did engage in a shit ton of good. Absolutely. In his individual life, Jimmy Carter was an exemplary individual. That much is 100% true. I will never sit here and act like that's not the case. That's why I'm saying he's one of the very unique. He is a unique president in the sense that out of all of like the modern age American presidents, he is the one notable figure that comes to mind that actively, in a very hands-on approach, did good things. Okay? He did. Having said that, however, Ashtam. I'm not from the USA. Can you explain what good things he did? Habitat for Humanity, he like actively built houses on his own, did a shit ton, set up global NGOs that still actively monitor to this day, like foreign policy initiatives from a much more sensible perspective, regardless of what he had done when he was in office. Hey man, pode sair. Hold on. He came here to little old Winnipeg, Manitoba to build houses. That man was all the fuck over putting up homes. A man should not be alive for Vladimir Lenin's death and Skibbity Toilet. Yeah, Jimmy Carter's last tweet. I'm all in on Hawk Tua coin. Hold on that thing. Why are you calling him a good guy? He committed genocide in East Timor. Chatter, I think you misunderstood what I was saying. I was saying that he was... I think it's important to note that he was a good person individually and still is, you know, I mentioned over and over again that he's probably looking up at us if there is a fucking heaven and hell, okay? You understand? Like, worst fucking timing. Some chatters need transcripts to reference because their ears do not work. Yeah. I think it's also really interesting because, like, you can be the best person possible in your individual affairs and yet still do a metric ton of objectively evil things in, you know, when you are sitting on the throne. Hasan, your chat is so racist. Okay. Jimmy Carter, a no-frills and steel-willed Southern governor who was elected president in 1976, was rejected by disillusioned voters after a single term and went on to extraordinary post-presidential life that included winning the Nobel Peace Prize, died Sunday at his home in Plains, Georgia, according to his son, James E. Carter, known as Chip. He was 100 and the oldest living U.S. president at the time, of all time. His son confirmed the death, but did not provide an immediate cause. I mean, we can make up our minds on this. I think you just kind of die at that point. As you know, he was literally living on 1 HP for quite some time. Okay? In February 2023, in a statement, the Carter Center said the former president, after a series of hospital stays, would stop further medical treatment and spend his remaining time at home under hospice care. He had been treated in recent years for an aggressive form of melanoma skin cancer with tumors that spread to his liver and brain. His wife, Rosalind, died on November 19th, 2023 at 96. Okay? The Carters, who were close partners in public life, had been married for more than 77 years, the longest presidential marriage in U.S. history. His final public appearance was at her funeral in Plains, where he sat in the front row in a wheelchair. Mr. Carter, a small-town peanut farmer, U.S. Navy veteran, and Georgia governor from 1971 to 1975, was the first president from the Deep South since 1837, and the only Democrat elected president between Lyndon B. Johnson's and Bill Clinton's terms in the White House. As the nation's 39th president, he governed with strong Democratic majorities in Congress, but in a country that was growing more conservative. 4 years after taking office, Mr. Carter lost his bid for re-election in a landslide to one of the most conservative political figures in the era, Ronald Reagan. When Mr. Carter left Washington in January 1981, he was widely regarded as a mediocre president, if not an outright failure. The list of what had gone wrong during his presidency, not all of it his fault, was long. It was a time of economic distress with stagnant economy and stubbornly high unemployment and inflation. Stagflation, connoting both low growth and high inflation, was a description that critics used to attack Mr. Carter's economic policies. In the summer of 1979, Americans waited in long lines of service stations as gasoline supplies dwindled and prices soared after the revolution in Iran disrupted the global oil supply.
Carter.
So Noam Chomsky, this is a very famous Noam Chomsky bit where he just like in the shortest terms, he just like goes over some of the war crimes of every single president. For those of you who are confused about like what Carter has done, this is just foreign policy. We haven't even talked about like domestic policy and how some of the initiatives laid forth by the Carter administration basically supercharged or at least provided reasonable ground for the Reagan administration to come in and turn America into the shithole that you know and love. So
Carter increased as the Indonesian atrocities were increasing. They peaked in 1978. Carter's flow of weapons to Indonesia increased. when Congress imposed human rights restrictions. By then there was a human rights movement in Congress to block the flow of advanced weaponry to Indonesia. Carter arranged through Mondale, vice president, to get Israel to send U.S. Skyhawks to Indonesia to enable Indonesia to complete what turned out to be near genocide, killing maybe a quarter of the population or something. In the Middle East, Carter just won the Nobel Prize. His great achievement was the Camp David agreements.
Yeah.
The Camp David agreements are presented as a diplomatic triumph for the United States. In fact, they were a diplomatic catastrophe. At Camp David, the United States and Israel accepted, finally, Egypt's 1971 offer, which they had then, U.S. had rejected at the time, except that now it was...
Can you explain Ronald Reagan administration like I'm 5? Sure. Everything that you despise about, like, as a consumer, everything that you despise about, like, I don't know, shittier and shittier versions of the same products that you get, all the way from that to broad sweeping anti-labor initiatives that were implemented and continue to this day can be traced back to Ronald Reagan, Reaganomics, trickle-down economics, virtually everything that sucks in the United States of America. I'm not in favor of like a single person being responsible for all of the evil. Obviously, that is anti-materialist thinking. Having said that, however, in the most reductive terms, if you hate something that's happening and you're like, why does the government have no solution to this? It seems like other competent administrations actually have a solution to this. Why is there so much income inequality? Why is there so much death and destruction? You can trace all of that back to Ronald Reagan. He is the guy. And he is so bad that you can even point to Carter opening up the opportunity for this evil spawn of Satan to take control over, by incredible margins, the American government and virtually destroy everything about American life.
Worse from the U.S.-Israeli point of view because it included the Palestinians. In order to get Israel to accept Egypt's 1971 offer after a major war and atrocities and so on, Carter raised military and other aid to Israel to more than 50% of total aid worldwide. Israel used it at once in exactly the way they said.
It is okay not to blame Dems every 5 seconds. What are you talking about? I mean, I'm literally talking about how everything bad in American modernity is Ronald Reagan's responsibility. But if you're talking about like anti-union initiatives and the proto-neoliberal attitudes demonstrated by American governments, yes, Carter played a role in this. That is correct.
Said they were going to do, as every sane person knew, as an opportunity to attack their northern neighbor, first in 1978, then in 1982, and to increase integration of the occupied territories. And that's for starters. We can continue.
Reagan?
I don't think we have to talk about that one either. I mean, Reagan is the first president to have been condemned by the International Court of Justice for what they called the unlawful use of force, meaning international terrorism in the war against Nicaragua. Again, that's just for starters. They also, the Security Council endorsed it in 2 resolutions, both of which were vetoed by the United States.
Bush won.
Well,
I don't agree that all presidents are in hell. What about the guy who did the checker speech? He seems pretty wholesome. What? So Jimmy Carter, regardless on the initial the initial opinions on Israel Palestine or what he did. Once again, I must repeat my original position that, like, post presidency, he had a lot of prescient takes on Israel.
Apartheid is
This is one of them.
Is exactly accurate. You know,
here he is on Democracy Now! In 2007, talking about the utilization of the term apartheid when describing Israel.
The word apartheid is exactly accurate. You know, this is an area that's occupied by two powers. They're now completely separated. The Palestinians can't even ride on the same roads that the Israelis have created or built in Palestinian territory. The Israelis never see a Palestinian except their Israeli soldiers. The Palestinians never see an Israeli except at a distance, except the Israeli soldiers. So within Palestinian territory, they're absolutely and totally separated, much worse than they were in South Africa, by the way. And the other thing is, the other definition of apartheid is one side dominates the other, and the Israelis completely dominate the life of the Palestinian people.
Why don't Americans know what you have seen?
Americans don't want to know, and many Israelis don't want to know what is going on inside Palestine. It's a terrible human rights persecution.
I know that this is a joke, but there's nothing funnier than... I know that this is a joke, but there's nothing funnier than looking at a guy like Jimmy Carter who was 100 fucking years old and was basically dying in hospice care for the past year. And thinking, oh, I wonder if there's like, it seems kind of weird. Was he vaccinated? Seems kind of weird. Maybe Mossad killed him. It's like there's perhaps not a better example of looking at a very open and shut case, looking at a story that does not require any sort of magical thinking whatsoever, and still trying to hammer in a mystical, magical narrative, a grand conspiracy. It is fucking fantastic.
That is far transcends what any outsider would imagine.
Jimmy Carter's conditions were, so dire that I feel like if someone killed him, you would consider it like, active voluntary euthanasia at this point. It's just like no one would be like, we got to litigate this.
And there are powerful political forces in America that prevents any objective analysis of the problem in the Holy Land. I think it's accurate to say that not a single member of Congress with whom I'm familiar would possibly speak out and call for Israel to withdraw to their legal boundaries or to publicize the plight of the Palestinians, or even to call publicly and repeatedly for good faith peace talks. There hadn't been a day of peace talks now in more than 7 years. So this is a taboo subject, and I would say that if any member of Congress did speak out, as I've just described, they would probably not be back into Congress the next term.
Oh my God, that's so loud. Holy fuck. Does Mossad know where RFK Jr. lives? Brother, RFK Jr. is unimaginably pro-Israel. It wasn't just him. Even his Secretary of State, who was Mika Brzezinski's father, is known for being outspoken on Palestine. Yes. I mean, but this isn't even like him being outspoken in a pro-Palestinian way. He's just like literally relitigating the falsehoods that Joe Scarborough was presenting. Okay? The falsehoods that Joe Scarborough is presenting here are the inaccuracies are just, he's just fact checking him in real time. Ironically enough, he would then later become Joe Scarborough's father-in-law. But, this is Free Taiwan testing something. Okay. Now, Zbigniew Brzezinski is one of the leading figures in the Vietnamization of Afghanistan. Just saying. So if you want to tie that back to like 9/11, for example, you want to tie Carter back to 9/11, there's opportunity for you to do so. As well, something that I've talked about quite a bit. A lot of people will point to Ronald Reagan, but it goes back. It's actually, you have to, dive a little bit further. Why all you care about is 9/11 and working out? Yeah, here is Jimmy Carter's #1 hater in the United States of America, Felix Biederman, who has apparently heard of the news. Iconic Jimmy Carter moments: Uberizing international warfare, abandoning New Deal policies in favor of a deregulatory race to the bottom, inviting Lash to the White House and pleading, "Please tell me what to do," and Lash going, "I don't know, just give up." Why you wear so many necklaces? What? Mr. Carter made energy his signature domestic policy initiative, and he had some success, but events outside of his control intervened. In March 1979, in a unit of the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, suffered a core meltdown. The accident was the worst event for U.S. nuclear energy industry and a severe setback of hopes that nuclear power would provide a safe alternative to oil and other fossil fuels. Mr. Carter's fortunes were no better overseas. In November 1979, an Iranian mob seized control of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking 52 Americans as hostages. It was the beginning of a 444-day ordeal that played out on daily on television and did not end until January 20th, 1981, the day Mr. Carter left office, when the hostages were released. Now, what's really interesting about that process is that, that was another... Remember when I talked about fucking Donald Trump cutting a side deal with Benjamin Netanyahu? Yeah. No, it's just sauces, Mom. All right, let's see what fucking CNN is
Still
saying.
getting these drips and drabs from Jimmy Carter's family or those around him about how he was doing. We knew that he wanted to make it through the election. We had gotten that reporting, but we had still been sort of hearing from those around him in the last year or so, even though he was in hospice care.
Yeah, and I was always checking in to see how he was doing with his friends and his family, and I would get updates, and I was always pretty much encouraged, even though he was in hospice for the past year, he was still enjoying and watching sports, and I was enjoying and watching sports, but he was a big Atlanta Braves fan, baseball fan, was watching games with his kids and his grandkids and his family and friends. So I would always get relatively upbeat assessments on how he was doing over the past year. But everybody knew under hospice, it was only a matter of time. And 100 years old, that's a
Damn,
very,
Wolf,
very
chill.
long life that he led. So we all anticipated it was only a matter of time, and now it has happened. And I think I speak for so many of our viewers in the United States and around the world when I say I want to express our deepest condolences to his loving family. May he rest in peace, and as we say, may his memory be a blessing.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, his family, I think it was his grandson, Wolf, that we saw at the DNC over the summer, as you point out, as we sort of had gotten these, these stories from those around him. Wolf, we appreciate you being here. Stand by for a moment if you can. I want to now bring into the conversation President Carter biographer Kai Bird. Kai, do I have you?
Yes.
Yeah, just top line reaction. As Wolf was just saying, You know, the former president was in hospice care. He had recently celebrated his 100th birthday. It is still nonetheless really shocking news.
Well, it is a long life, over 100 years.
Yeah, I don't really care. Like, I don't feel bad when a 100-year-old dies. Like, I don't know. I mean, they did it. They maxed out.
I would argue, as the biographer who spent 6 years working on his life,
I don't know if I'm weird about this at all, but it's like, dude, if you live to 100 and you died around your fucking loved ones, it's like, what? You did it. You won. Like, what are we fucking doing here, you know? You made it. You maxed out. That's the fucking hard cap. That is the hard level cap on life, okay? There is a finite amount of time that you could be alive. You make it past like 80, you're great. You're chilling, okay? Big time. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. Maybe I sometimes come across as like indifferent when I'm covering stuff like this, but it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's weird for me to not feel some type of way about this. Maybe I'm supposed to feel bad, but I can't. You know, he lived a long ass life. He got to do a whole bunch of shit. A lot of bad as well, considering that he was, you know, once again, the president of the United States of America. It just comes with the job, comes with the territory. Anti-union initiatives, you know, creating the groundwork for Ronald Reagan and neoliberalism, but from the Democratic Party side in terms of domestic affairs. But then also when it comes to foreign policy, continuing American death and destruction, continuing American empire. What good did he do? I mean, he built houses and shit. Like, he's like a nice person overall. And has been a longtime advocate for Palestinian emancipation. There's a lot of stuff that he's done post-presidency. I wrote a book about
it. Your 21st book, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. Let me read from page 215 of your book. A system of apartheid with two peoples occupying the same land but completely separated from each other.
Like his org, the Carter Foundation is like one of the few shockingly, I would say, reasonable American foreign policy institutes out there. Having said that, of course, he, once again, controlled the reins of American empire. So he still did a lot of, you know, metric ton of evil too.
Other, with Israelis totally dominant and suppressing violence by depriving Palestinians of their basic human rights. This is the policy now being followed. And last Sunday, you told the Louisville Journal, I would say that in many ways the treatment of the Palestinians by the Israeli occupying forces is as onerous, and in some cases more onerous, as the treatment of black people in South Africa by the apartheid government. Those are very strong words.
They're exactly accurate. And I think I should point out quickly that the book refers to Palestine and not to Israel. And I also make clear in the book that the apartheid that is perpetrated now on the Palestinians in the occupied territories is not based on racism. It's based on the desire by a minority of Israelis for Palestinian land. And in the acquisition of that land, the occupation, the confiscation, and then the colonization of that land, they are perpetuating an absolute and total division.
Another woke college
between
kid.
Israelis living on Palestinian territory.
These young
and the
woke
right of
college
Palestinians
students, dude.
to interrelate with any Israelis who are occupying their own land. So that word is accurate for what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians on Palestinian territory. The Arabs that live in the occupied territories, which is not Israel's territory, but their own, are horribly abused. And I don't think anyone could go to the West Bank and Gaza or even to East Jerusalem and see what's happening now to the Palestinians that would disagree with my use of the word apartheid.
As I read your book, this struck me, particularly from someone in political life. You wrote the following: There are constant and vehement political and media debates in Israel concerning its policies in the West Bank, but because of powerful political, economic, and religious forces in the United States, Israeli government decisions are rarely questioned or condemned. Voices from Jerusalem dominate in our media, and most American citizens are unaware of circumstances in the occupied territories. And then you went on to say, there's no doubt there is a strong aversion to criticizing Israel in this country. I wouldn't say it's all because of intimidation, but that is one factor.
Yes. Do you disagree with that? Well, I won't ask you that. You're the one asking questions. But I don't think anyone could disagree with that. There are very few, if any, voices in the political realm of Washington.
Do you understand why I'm saying it's complicated and I'm not like immediately running the classic like he's a ginormous piece of shit line? This is part of the reason.
Or in the major news media, who would raise the kind of issues that are raised in this book.
Why?
I have said in the book, I don't know if it's intimidation or just reticence. There are some factors that are involved even in the religious circles, but it's almost completely unacceptable in this country for any public official to criticize the policies of Israel, even if they are horribly abusive against the Palestinians and violate human rights.
This is in effect taking on the, quote, Israeli lobby or the Jewish lobby.
That's part. The Jewish lobby may be part of it. I didn't say that in the book, but I think that's part of it. But even, I don't think that the Washington Post or the New York Times or NBC or others are intimidated by the Jewish lobby. But I think there's a reticence, even in public fora, to describe both sides of the issues in the West Bank.
What the fuck? I fap 4 times a day?
Opportunity to act as the indispensable mediator.
Almost never in our history has a president devoted so much time on a single problem.
He had studied
to the 46th president
characters
of the United
histories
States,
of the two
Joe.
leaders who deeply mistrusted each other. He wrote Sadat and Begin personal letters inviting them to Camp David. And when they arrived on American soil, it was high stakes for all 3 men involved.
Failure here would just increase the impression that Mr. Carter is a nice man, but an inept president.
This meeting is truly historic, and the people who will participate know it.
13 days of intense negotiations, crucially behind closed doors. No leaks, no social media, no media at all.
The Israeli delegation is totally zipped up. Even less is coming out of it than is coming out of the Egyptian delegation.
At Camp David, Carter and his team shuttle back and forth between the 2 men and their teams, often negotiating late into the night. Carter's national security advisor, the late Zbigniew Brzezinski, described what looked like mission impossible.
Sadat, to sign a peace treaty with Begin, had to break ranks with the entire Arab world. He had to face isolation. Begin, to agree with Sadat, had to give up territory for the first time and to give up settlements.
When direct talks between Sadat and Begin became too heated, Carter kept them apart and quashed any attempt to call off the negotiations. After 2 weeks of complications, drama, and false starts, the men finally returned to Washington to deliver the good news. They had reached a deal.
Just look at 2 weeks ago what the situation was. Peace process all but dead.
An achievement none thought possible.
It appears that the president won, and he won big.
Decades after Camp David, I sat down with President Carter and asked him how in the world he had done it.
There you were, you brought peace with Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat. It all seems so much easier then, was it? Or is that just what we think now, all these years later?
I think it was much more difficult because I was negotiating between 2 men whose nations had been at war 4 times in just 25 years.
The magnitude of that accomplishment lives on in the image of that 3-way handshake. The Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin summed it up like this.
The Camp David Conference should be renamed. It was the Jimmy Carter Conference.
The final result? Israel would return the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt, a piece of land the two had fought wars over. Egypt would finally recognize Israel's right to exist and give Israel access to the crucial Suez Canal shipping lanes. Both leaders declared no more fighting. All three men would eventually be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. But one thing wouldn't change. Arabs called Sadat a traitor. 3 years later, he was assassinated by Muslim extremists in his own country. Still, many years later, President Carter told me that he was proud of this first peace deal between Arabs and Israelis.
The peace treaty that was negotiated between Israel and Egypt over extremely difficult circumstances was beneficial to both sides, and not a single word of the treaty has been violated. It was much more difficult than the altercation between the Israelis and the Palestinians is today.
And that conflict, the one between Palestinians and Israelis, still rages on to this day. But it doesn't alter the fact that there was a shining moment when Jimmy Carter engaged the full and indispensable role of the United States and changed one corner of the Middle East forever. Christiana Manpour, CNN, London.
All right, let's now bring in CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent Jeff Zeleny. Jeff, good to have you. I want to follow up on something that we heard a short time ago from President Carter's biographer, Kai Bird. He said, in a lot of ways, President Carter was ahead of his times in many ways, particularly in foreign affairs.
Rahel, there is no question that he was ahead of his time in so many ways as an environmentalist, as a conservationist, and as we are really getting the reactions from Democrats and Republicans, American leaders. I'm looking at one now from former President Bill Clinton and Secretary Hillary Clinton. They talk about how they met him in 1975. They're praising his really post-presidency work. Also getting reaction from Republican Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, praising his post-presidency work. The through line to this here is that Jimmy Carter believed that a president's afterlife, a post-presidency, should not be a time to make profit, but actually a time to do good. And that, of course, is something that is really the last of his kind in that respect. He was not known to give big speeches leaving office. But let's talk about him being in office for a moment. You're right. He was ahead of his time. There's no question his protecting the lands of Alaska, his work on the Panama Canal, and even putting solar panels on the White House. And I was just actually watching a documentary over the weekend called Carterland, which is such a good encapsulation of his time in office. And he was talking about in the year 2000, of course, that seemed like a long time away in the 70s, but talking about the solar panels on the White House. Of course, Ronald Reagan had them removed when he came into office. But when you look at his classic American story, he definitely was elected at 52 years old, but ahead of his time in so many ways.
Yeah, I just want to read a comment that we're getting in from the former president's son, Jeff. I'll read it out for you. It says, "My father was a hero, not only to me, but to everyone who believes in peace, human rights, and unselfish love." This is coming from Chip Carter. He continued and said, "My brothers, sister, and I shared with him with the rest of the world through these common beliefs. The world is our family because of the way he brought people together, and we thank you for honoring his memory by continuing to live these shared beliefs." You know, Jeff, in a lot of ways, he was sort of in a class of his own. I mean, he was the oldest living former president. You know, he lived to 100. He, you know, as we just said, he was a president sort of ahead of his time. But talk to us a little bit about sort of how he, even just in terms of how he sort of had this second career after leaving office that in and of itself was remarkable.
Well, it absolutely was. I mean, he, you know, was elected as a fresh face of the South in the wake of Watergate and in the anger from Vietnam. If we think of every presidential election as a series of, you know, a linked chain of events, his was a reaction to the Nixon administration and the Ford presidency and the anger in the country over President Ford pardoning Richard Nixon. So he was the agent of change at that point. But of course, the economy and so many other things got in the way. And his advisors at the time said, "You're doing too much."
Yes, this was in my predictions for 2024.
Perhaps some of this for the second term. Of course, there was no second term. Ronald Reagan handily defeated him. But I think going back to Jimmy Carter, he had if you look through these documentaries and if you walk through the Carter Center in Atlanta, as I have several times, the pictures in the Oval Office as the buck stops here. Of course, that's the Harry Truman line, but also it's something that he took to heart. And as we are looking here at statements still coming in, an interesting line here from Senator Mitch McConnell. He said, "President Carter served during times of tension and uncertainty, both at home and abroad, but his calm spirit and deep faith seemed unshakable." And faith, I think, Rahel, is something that is central to Jimmy Carter's life. Of course, we remember seeing him at the funeral of his wife of 77 years, Rosalind, just a little over a year ago. And now he has taken his lead, reunited with her. So an American love story, an American original in so many ways, will be celebrated over the next several days as his funeral plans begin to take shape.
Yeah, you know, Jeff, that's a really important point. It's something that we hadn't touched on yet, but just his faith and sort of how crucial that was and the way that he lived his life. Jeff, thank you. I want to now bring in for a moment Kai Bird, who was with us now. Kai, I mean, you have had the privilege of working with Jimmy Carter quite closely. Give us a sense, if you might, of some personal anecdotes or any stories that really stood out to you.
Well, you were speaking about Camp David and his intervention to achieve a peace treaty in the Middle East. You know, he took on this issue with no background in it. He
was just that good.
His advisors all told him not to do it, that it was dangerous territory. And yet Carter, you know, was a very well-read man, and he thought he was the most intelligent guy in the room, and he could educate himself on this issue. And he just decided, this is something that is really important to do, and I'm going to use my powers of the presidency to make something happen where no one else has been able to go to that territory. And over the objections of Zbigniew Brzezinski, his national security advisor, he organized this Camp David retreat and invited Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin. And over 13 days, it was an incredible drama of personal diplomacy in which he forced them to stay there. They both tried to leave on at least 2 occasions. And he managed to keep them there for 13 days and iron out an agreement. And at a sort of critical tipping point, just as Menachem Begin was about to storm out once again, Carter came over to Menachem Begin's cabin in Camp David and brought with him photographs of himself and Begin and Sadat, and he had signed to his grandchildren, to Begin's grandchildren, and he had gotten their names, and he handed these little gifts. And this caused the very stern and staid Begin to break down and start weeping because Carter had inscribed them, you know, for peace for our grandchildren. And this was sort of brought home to Begin that he was missing an opportunity. And at that point, he said, okay, I'll go back. I'll negotiate one more round with you. And out of that came the Camp David Accords, which are still in effect. They brought peace between Egypt and Israel. And yet there was a missed opportunity because Carter always believed that he also got the outlines for a peace between Israel and the Palestinians as well. And that, of course, is a very controversial argument that historians are still trying to figure out all these decades later.
Yeah. Kai, I want to ask you to weigh in on something my colleague Jeff Zeleny had just mentioned there toward the end of our conversation, but the importance of Jimmy Carter's faith and the way in which he pursued his work and the way in which he pursued the issues and the causes that were important to him.
Yes, faith mattered a great deal to him. He was a Southern Baptist. He thought of Israel and Palestine as the Holy Land. And he just thought it was a tragedy that war was being fought in the Holy Land. And he believed that he had studied the issue enough to understand what a compromise might look like.
Nope.
2 states for 2 peoples, and territorial compromises, and sharing of Jerusalem. And all of that was sort of set in
Am I crazy?
background of the Camp David Accords.
I thought he famously didn't know shit. Like, he didn't know anything, with the exception of, like, maybe some biblical text. And also, Camp David Accords unironically solidified Israel's position of dominance over the Palestinians.
You know, we're seeing, it's ironic, but, you know, Jimmy Carter was dealing with Israel, Palestine, Iran, revolutionary Iran, the same issues we're dealing with today. But if he had gotten an agreement from Begin in 1978 to freeze the settlements in the West Bank, no more building of settlements in the West Bank for 5 years, that would have been a huge step. That would have led, inevitably, I would argue, to a 2-state solution. And here we are decades later, and Jimmy Carter always believed that this was his biggest failure in the presidency, that he didn't somehow get that pinned down.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point, Kai. I mean, what do you make of some of the parallels between his time in office and sort of present day 2024, whether we're talking about Iran, whether we're talking about the conflict in the Middle East? And you mentioned Paul Volcker earlier, the Federal Reserve Chair, who was, you know, in charge of fighting the highest inflation that we had seen in years, and we have seen since then. And so it is just sort of remarkable, the parallels between his time in office and 2024.
Yeah, this is why Carter's presidency, not just his ex-presidency, but his presidency is so relevant to us today, because he was grappling with these extremely difficult issues that he took on head on, including energy, race, religion, climate change, as we've discussed, peace in the Middle East, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
How long ago do you think they had this video ready to go? Years. People start writing obituaries so early on. Famously, Henry Kissinger had co-writers on his New York Times obituary. Some of the people who co-wrote Henry Kissinger's obituary died before Henry Kissinger died.
A solution in Israel-Palestine, or race, or the separation of religion and state, which is something that Carter, Southern Baptist, was very much committed to. So his presidency is oddly relevant in a way that I think most Americans don't understand or have forgotten.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. Kai Bird, we so appreciate you being with us on this breaking news. Again, former President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100. And thank you for joining me today. We're going to continue to cover this breaking news. Omar Jimenez picks up now.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We begin this hour with breaking news. Former President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100. The Carter Center says the 39th president died this afternoon, surrounded by family in his hometown of Plains, Georgia. The former president had been in home hospice care since February of 2023, but Carter became the oldest living former president when he surpassed the record held by the late George H.W. Bush in March of 2019. Carter, a Georgia peanut farmer and a lifelong Democrat, served a single term as president from 1977 to 1981, losing a re-election bid to Ronald Reagan. Now, his presidency was defined by blows to America's economy and conflicts overseas, But his most enduring legacy came after his presidency, winning a Nobel Peace Prize and redefining himself as a human rights pioneer. Joining us now, CNN's Jake Tapper takes a look at how former President Carter spent his long life embracing faith and how it shaped his life and career.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
Jimmy Carter faced the American presidency the same way he faced nearly everything else in his life, with unflinching faith. Oh my
Taken the
God.
oath of office on the Bible my mother gave me just a few years ago.
And as Americans looked to President Carter to lead them, President Carter looked to God for guidance.
With God's help, and for the sake of our nation, it is time for us to join hands in America.
As a devout evangelical, the pride of Plains, Georgia, was active in his hometown church well into his 90s.
Well, thank you for coming this morning.
Both as a student of faith and as a teacher.
My father was a Sunday school teacher. He taught me when I was a child. I still teach Sunday school when I can.
A commitment to God and family were long-held hallmarks of the Carter home.
The scripture was part of his daily childhood life. Every night at supper, they would not only say the Lord's Prayer, but would read the gospel.
When Carter left home for the Naval Academy, his faith followed.
He would spend his weekends on leave doing Bible classes, tutoring people in scripture. He talks about Jesus Christ all the time.
But in 1966, the lifelong Christian came to question his beliefs, his faith shaken after losing the Georgia governor's race in the primary.
I really felt let down by God.
Carter's younger sister read him scripture from the book of James, reminding the future president
that a setback in life should be an institution that results in perseverance and patience and self-analysis and renewed spiritual commitment.
She made him into what evangelicals called a born-again Christian.
With renewed conviction, Carter went on to serve as Georgia's governor and later as America's commander-in-chief. The 39th president and his new vice president, Walter Mondale, had Christianity in common. They bonded over it.
I grew up in a minister's family, and he recognized what I was about. And I think that's one of the things that pulled us together.
It was also one of the qualities that helped Carter become the first president to welcome the Pope to the White House.
Let all of us here of every faith stand as one under God for peace and justice and for love.
The president's knowledge of world religion played a key role in his brokering of the Egypt-Israel peace treaty in 1979.
Yeah, using a religious framework to try to solve a colonialist conquest is fucking hilarious. Like there you go. Oh, there it happened already. It happened for Carter as well. The thing that I was talking about with respect to how sometimes you have people who outlive their obituary writers. What the fuck? Why can't I actually move this? Here it is. Jimmy Carter outlived one of his obituary writers. Peter Baker is the chief White House correspondent for the Times. Roy Reid, who died in 2017, was a Times national correspondent who for many years covered the South. Yeah, obituary writers sometimes like start writing the obituaries so long ago that like they fucking pass away before the subject dies.
Namesake Carter Center touched the lives of millions.
Well, the work at the Carter Center has been, I'd say, more personally gratifying to me.
Founded in 1982 as part of his presidential library, the Carter Center has worked to ensure the fairness of more than 100 elections in nearly 40 countries.
Low-key, one of the most like pro-Venezuelan institutions in America.
Guinea worm that had long burdened parts of Africa.
Guinea worm is probably one of the oldest diseases remembered by human beings. It's in the Bible. We think it's a fiery serpent.
For his work, Jimmy Carter earned the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002. In addition to his philanthropic work, Jimmy Carter was a prolific author. He published more than 25 books touching on his belief in God, country, and kindness. You only have to have two loves in your life, he wrote, for God and for the person in front of you at any particular time. The person with Carter most was his wife, Rosalind, who worshiped alongside him for more than 7 decades.
When I'm overseas, or when she is, we read the same passage in the Bible, and we kind of, communicate silently.
Even when cancer threatened to take Mr. Carter from his wife and from the life he loved, he kept his faith and looked again to God.
Now I feel, that it's in the hands of.
Interesting. There was a book that mentioned Israel-Palestine in there, but not the one that calls Israel an apartheid. I wonder why.
And I want to bring in CNN.
There was an Israel-Palestine book in there, Peace in the Holy Land or whatever. But there wasn't the one where he openly says Palestine not apartheid or peace not apartheid.
Jeff is on the phone, and Chip Carter, the former president's son, said, "My father was a hero not only to me but to everyone who believes in peace, human rights, and unselfish love." And I guess, Jeff, I bring that quote up because for President Carter, there's almost 2 major chapters in his legacy. Of course, his time in office.
I'm sorry, I'm a product of American presidents, American education system, but doesn't that seem bad? He doesn't seem that bad compared to other presidents? No, especially for like all of his work post-presidency, which is valid. Like, he's just like kind of a dunderhead, a really religious guy, actually a religious guy, not like fake religious in the way that, not fake religious in the way that Trump is, and certainly not insane religious in the way that like Mike Pence is, right? He is like the classic religious guy that's like, I want to abide by my faith and I want to do the things that, the Bible tells me to do. Good things for others, be kind to individuals, that kind of thing. And in spite of all of that, of course, he was still he was still tasked with doing horrifyingly monstrous things as the president of the United States. Also, a lot of people, in the Republican Party, historically have hated him and have hailed him as like pre-Obama. Everyone used to point to Carter as like the worst president. Okay.
He created the Department of Education. He appointed Ruth
They
Bader
hated Bill
Ginsburg
Clinton
to the
too.
federal bench and began the process of diversifying the courts. Up until he became president, only
What is this?
8
HasnAbi women
were on the federal bench.
What is it? Where is it? Oh, it's just showing different recommended articles. Let's see if I can find it. It's probably a meme. Let's see what the meme is. Search meme. What was it? HasnAbi women? Oh, this is it. They're my blast off memes, you dummies. I very quickly will write out, like when I post it in the memes folder, I very quickly just like type something out that I'm going to post on Twitter. Where's the Dua Lipa one? What is the poo folder? Oh, that's like tax documents and shit. You accidentally showed your short stack goblin porn? Yeah, I don't fucking watch porn on my work computer. And I also don't download porn. I feel like downloading porn is degenerate shit. Like, I feel like that's the first step towards becoming like an actual gooner porn addict. Like, I've never watched a porn where I was like, damn, I really need to save this. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to have access to this again. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm a Philistine. But my porn consumption habits are pretty They're pretty like basic. You go Pornhub. Like back in the day, obviously I used to download a lot of porn because I was in Turkey. And porn was not as readily accessible and easy to come by. But now, it seems crazy. I actually don't know why. Like what the inflection point is for why so many Republicans hate Carter. Because like the hatred they have for him is far more severe. Like they hate Bill Clinton, they hate Obama, they hate Obama the most. We know what it is for Barack Obama. For Barack Obama, it's obviously being black first and foremost. But like for Jimmy Carter, I feel like they saw him as like a pinko commie libtard who loves apologizing to the rest of the world for America's war crimes or whatever, even though he wasn't. But I just don't know why they fucking hate him that much.
Essentially, from a president and, of course, high-profile work afterward as well. I mean, how difficult was it to lead the life that they live? And just what kind of example did they set, do you believe, for the country and world at large in just their relationship?
I think it could be like a similar dynamic to how liberals despise leftists. Because from their perspective, like it makes them kind of look back at their own ideological shortcomings. Like that's why liberals hate liberal politicians hate like Bernie Sanders, for example, because they look to Bernie Sanders and they're like, you're a piece of shit because you are really pushing the needle. And for maybe like conservative religious freaks, they hate that he's like at least his output in his individual life was like of a deeply religious man who is not a bad guy. They're really just drafting off the anger that people felt against Carter. America literally ran out of gasoline. He couldn't fill your tank during his presidency. Imagine what the Treatlers would do. Yeah, Adolf Treatlers would do if that happened in the U.S. $10 a gallon gas, etc. The boomers were so angry. Yeah, I guess that's what it is. That's got to be like the most significant part of this, right?
Peace Accords at Camp David. It was actually her idea to do it there because she was close with Sadat and his wife. And one of those stories that I think Kai mentioned before that I just love is that, you know, the personal touch that they both had, and the fact that when things were looking bad during Camp David, it was Jimmy Carter who gave Begin this signed photograph and said, give it to your grandchildren. And that's what brought Begin back to the negotiating table.
Oh my God, I don't care about this. Iran plus Reagan being seen as a great Jesus. Nah, most older people hate him because during the Iranian hostage crisis, Republicans thought Carter should have bombed Iran. Was Jimmy Carter dying in your 2024 predictions? Yes, it was. But that's like not that interesting. What's actually interesting is that not only was it in my predictions, it wasn't in just my predictions, but I literally said a couple days ago. I said a couple days ago that that you know, there's still time for the year to end when people were making fun of me for predicting that Jimmy Carter would die in 2024. That's what's interesting about it, I think, or at least somewhat interesting about it, is that like he did do a buzzer beater. Did you write his name in your notebook? Yeah, I have a death note and I wrote Jimmy Carter's name on it. That's fucking crazy. All right. Let's go back to this, and I'm going to give you some
I mean, his Sunday school
some
that
more
he was
critical
delivering
stuff.
at Maranatha Baptist Church. He did this more than 2,000 times well into his 90s. And anybody who got the chance to sit and listen to him speak, you look over at Rosalind and she just looked adoringly at him. So it was the pinnacle of his life, marrying her. And I think she felt the same. You know, when he lost in a landslide to Ronald Reagan, she was devastated and she never quite got over it. She thought the country made a huge mistake by not re-electing her husband.
Shit.
So this was a partnership that continued well after the White House.
Yeah, and I want to bring Ron Brownstein back into the conversation.
One of my predictions from one of my last remaining predictions from 2024 that came
former
true.
President Jimmy Carter's legacy here.
100.
And Ron, you know, I can't help when you look at it politically. It's almost hard not to see some of the parallels politically in our environment today that we saw back when he was in office as well. I mean, you know, inflation was one of the biggest issues in this past election, and we know during his time that was something that was a major struggle in this country. And I just want to use that as a jumping off point. Do you see many similarities?
Wait, what did Trump say? Oh my God. Oh my God. Hold on. Hold on. What's the Elton John song that was playing when Donald Trump responded to RB? Yeah. Okay, hold on. I got it. New Trump tweet just dropped. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. You want to come read it? Okay. Hold on. We're not going to do this yet because I'm waiting for Alexander Lolo to come and read it. Okay. Your mic is on.
Hey, chat. Sorry, guys. I'm leaving tomorrow, okay? And I won't be here anymore. And then you guys won't see
Thank
me for a
God,
long
dude.
time.
Fucking thank God.
I know. I'm sorry.
You
guys.
greatly overstayed your welcome. Shit.
Sorry.
Jimmy Carter died. I don't know if you knew that.
I'm gonna take. Yeah. I heard the news. Very sad.
All right. Read.
He was only 100. So young.
So young. Who could have thought? Anyway, here.
Is it? Are you doing it in the background?
Yeah.
Just heard the news about the passing of President Jimmy Carter. Those of us who have been fortunate enough to have served as president understand that this is a very exclusive club, and only we can relate to the enormous responsibility of leading the greatest nation in history. The challenges Jimmy faced as president came at a pivotal time for our country, and frankly, he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans, not as much as me, but a lot. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. Melania and I are thinking warmly of the Carter family and their loved ones during this difficult time. We urge everyone to keep them in their hearts and prayers.
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
This is the forever. I think whenever Trump tries to eulogize someone, I'm gonna play that song.
Yeah.
It has to be played in the background.
This was pretty nice. This is a pretty nice message that he wrote.
it's kind of surprising that he didn't go, Carter was the worst American president.
A big time loser, as we know.
Yeah, major loser.
Couldn't cut it 2 times, no.
Yeah.
He tried to put solar panels on the White House.
But just like Sleepy Joe Biden, his defeat brought back one of the greatest, second greatest American presidents. Joe Biden's defeat brought me back, and Carter brought Ronald Reagan, who is not the greatest president, but the second after myself. That's how you know he didn't write it? Yeah, your cousin probably wrote this.
Danny? Yeah, probably. Did you guys, speaking of which, do you guys think I should go to the inauguration?
Can you, how tight are you?
Do you want to go?
How tight are you?
Me and Danny?
Yeah.
We're not tight at all, but his mom and my mom are tight.
You think you can get me into the inauguration?
If you want to go, as long as you don't cause problems, you could probably come.
Why would I cause problems? What problems could I cause?
Because you're Antifa. You're an Antifa terrorist.
No, I'm not. I'm literally misogynistic, and I reveling the
news
death
media.
of homeless.
This is crazy. You're gonna go. This is the big heel turn, guys. He's gonna go to the inauguration.
Yeah.
He's gonna go on Rogan.
I'm gonna outflank Jake. Like Shaky Gurga thinks he can do this fucking
Here, let me
pivot.
text my mom right now. She texted me this morning. Also,
Okay.
she liked the video that we sent for some reason, even though you called me autistic in it. She's like, "That's nice. I like Hasan." That's what she said.
Really?
Yeah.
What does your mom sound like female Donald Trump
Everybody
in this,
in my family sounds that
in this
way.
impersonation? Why are you doing her like that? That's messed up. More evidence of Hasan's rightward shift? Yeah.
Jimmy, what's Jimmy's last name? Jimmy Donaldson. Fantastic. One of our best presidents.
Mr. Beast
of the world didn't really exist.
All right, well,
Harry
the play
Truman,
session's
Dwight
on.
Eisenhower,
I'm going to take
they
this
kinda
stuff
went
out
home
of
to the
here.
farm. Lyndon Johnson, same.
I will bring
same
my own
story.
MAGA hat to the
and,
fucking inauguration
I think
if I'm allowed to
Carter
go.
Really
I think that's a little
created
too
the
on the
idea
nose.
That a former president.
Wait, why?
I don't think you should wear a MAGA hat to
engaged
the
and a
inauguration. I
source
think that's
of
crazy.
positive change around the world. And
Why?
You know, he's sort of. It's like a new model. You know,
That's
and
what he's going to do. He's
there
going to
are
make
very few
America great
people
again.
in our history who can say that about that. They just sort of created something that really reimagined. You know, there've been former presidents
I fuck
for,
with
you know,
Jimmy Carter.
at that point, almost 200 years. But none had really.
I mean, he's
envisioned
probably
their
the only
role
good
in
like
the same
post.
way that he did.
Can you talk about that?
And I think he has
The only
created a
good
model that,
president,
to
like,
varying extent,
post-presidency,
other
in terms
presidents
of trying to do the right
I
thing.
think now see as part of kind of what you
Racist
are expected to do when you leave office.
I mean, he
although
ran a
none,
tremendously
I think,
racist
to the full extent,
campaign
matches
to
the full
become,
extent of Carter's engagement with so many different causes for so long.
Right, he was governor of
And
Georgia.
this, of course, as we continue to see the images of the American flag
peanut
at
farmer?
half staff, and to speak to some of
Chad, is this right?
what you were talking about, they founded the Carter Center in Atlanta in partnership with Emory University
Chad,
in
was he
1982,
peanut
and those
farmer?
initiatives included monitoring international elections, fighting diseases in developing
Georgia?
countries, seeking international
Dude, look how
peace. And
good
one
I
of their
am.
key
Look at that.
accomplishments that
Where
they're
am I pulling that
credited
from?
with
I don't
is
even
the
remember
near
what I was eating
eradication
for
of guinea
breakfast
worm
yesterday.
disease for more than
Just
3
kidding.
million
I've been
cases
eating
in
a breakfast
1986 to
burrito every single
14
day that I've been in Los
last
Angeles.
year in 2023, and he of course got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor for an American civilian, in 1999. I mean, the impact. I mean, just those
can't hear
numbers
me?
alone, reading out of a disease essentially being eradicated over just a few decades is pretty remarkable. But I guess what my mind goes to now is how does that work continue? I mean, obviously he's set such a standard, and even towards
Chad,
the end of his life,
right
while he maybe was not as mobile and as public as maybe he would have liked to be, understandably so. He was around 100 years old leading up to it. But where is that source of light? Where is that momentum? How does that work continue at a level that Jimmy Carter?
I'm good. No, I'm staying one more day because I have to interview this big idiot. I'm putting you on speaker. You're on stream. There's how many people are watching? I'm putting you on speakerphone.
Don't want to be on speakerphone.
Okay, you're on speakerphone right now. There are 25,000 people watching. Okay, so don't say anything really problematic.
It's 26,000. Hello.
Ma, it's Hasan. Mom, Hasan wants to go to the inauguration.
That'd be great.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Why not?
No.
Is Kathy going?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Can Hasan go? He'll be really good. He doesn't want to go to the parties. He wants to just take it all in.
Yeah, I want to.
Take it all in.
Trump is our president now, and I want to celebrate it.
He wants to celebrate.
No, I don't trust you two. Absolutely.
That's
never happening.
no.
That's never
We'll be good, Mary. We'll be good.
We will be so good.